Jesus. The AAC Stadium Heads episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 325 times your entry with their brand new Pick 8. Sign up, and when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get the best data-driven props and picks from Rhythm. Claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm.
Hey, everybody. Joe Theismann here. You're listening to SGPN. So do this. Let it ride.
Have something new coming. Okay, that can be done in any case. Education. More education and more informed people. That's the way it is with everything. Young men, they ask me advice, and I always tell them, get as much knowledge as you can.
Stadium Heads, man.
The granddaddy of them all, the famed Rose Bowl, jammed with the color of over 100,000 fans for its 67th renewal.
And the weather here today at Notre Dame Stadium, in a word, it is cold, but it is football weather. The temperature 37 degrees, humidity 79%. Forecast cloudy for light rain later on this afternoon.
The average person doesn't know what a good stadium is. They might think they know what a good stadium is, but they think just, our seats are nice and it's so comfortable. We have a 10,000-inch screen we can watch the replay on while we're watching the game, and we got a waiter coming over to take our orders, right? And there's 20 million bathrooms close to us. That's not what makes a good stadium. A good stadium is the look of it, the feel of it, the history of it, the soul of it. That's what makes a good stadium. That's what I mean when I say we're stadium heads. We are stadium heads.
They get to run around. Now those people, they shouldn't even be there. That doesn't even count. If you can't get out in the elements, you shouldn't even go to the game. That's the worst thing. Those darn boxes up there and dome stadiums and stuff. We don't need that, right?
Welcome to sunny El Paso, the 52nd Sun Bowl, and now
this ancient facility is one of the great settings in all of college football. Neyland is now in its 87th year.
That's what we are, though. We are stadium heads. Welcome back to our Stadium Heads podcast, AAC Stadiums episode on the Stadium Heads podcast. And look, get on over to YouTube, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. I think you'll dig the visual side of this. Because look, if you're listening on the audio side, that's fine too. But the visual side, obviously, we use all of Michael's photos. So if you're wondering just who the hell you're listening to, well, that's fair. My name is Colby Swigga, Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
Nobody knows nothing. Somebody knows. Double the price, but no one touches Dundee.
The AAC, my beloved Pirates, are in this conference. This is like, it's bittersweet in a way, because it's like this conference has just been insane movement over the past few years. It started with UConn in their 2020 national championship. But UConn was once in this conference. They had this rivalry called the Civil Conflict. That was not a rivalry. It was horrible. But I'd like to say UConn might have been the catalyst behind all this change in the AAC. I am joined by my co-host. He is known as the most interesting man in college football, and we even have a nice introduction from old ESPN from him.
They wanted to shout out Michael Barker. You can follow him on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour. This is his 84th college football game of the 2023 season. He said he's going to end at 90 college football games he's attended this year with the college football national title in Houston. So, again, he's out there with everybody.
He's like
wet
US
weather.
Postal Service. Rain, sleet, snow. It doesn't.
Rain, sleet, snow. That is college football campus tour, a.k.a. Michael Barker. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to talking about these stadiums. We'll hand it off to you when it comes to ECU, but this is good for me because right now I feel like the season is close, but it's not quite there. You know, my analogy would be you're in prison and you got a calendar and you know your release date and you're just crossing off every day, getting closer. So I think I saw a tweet, 55 days means we're under 2 months. Hopefully this show will bridge the gap for people before we get to have fun and start with the real thing.
Yeah, and obviously as the season heats up, Michael's travel schedule, folks. If you haven't, maybe you didn't tune into his work over the past few years, it's absolutely insane. You're going to want to give him a follow on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour. As much as we're going to cover his travel, because no podcast has ever stayed like on a weekly format of following his travel. And I think it just is going to be great for entertainment and great for everything. But if you're a college football fan, aside from this podcast, which I want you to subscribe to in general, just give him a follow on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour. Because when I say the most interesting man in college football, yes, he's not staying at 5-star hotels, folks. He's not staying at hotels. You know what I mean? Not even 1-star hotels for the most part, I believe. But yeah, I mean, he's bouncing around. It's really insane. It's really something that I feel like you should be featured in like the Guinness Book of World Records or something. But anyway.
I did apply, and I haven't heard back. The only category they had was football matches, and I think that means soccer. Says it takes 3 months to get back. I haven't heard anything yet. So sometimes you have to call your shot. So maybe if we're going to do more than 90 this year, maybe we can get back in touch to them and warn them and have them track it. But yeah, I mean, you're going to shout on ESPN. I'll take that. Sorry, Guinness Book, unless you're going to give me the proper credit. We're ESPN, greater sign, Guinness Book of World Records.
Fair, very fair.
Right now. But if they put me
I'm
in the book,
starting
then it's on the opposite.
I want to start the campaign for College Game Day to get you on the show. All right, because and I don't even know if I'm first, but I'm jumping on the wagon. If not, all right, let's go. Let's get Michael Barker College Football Campus Tour on College Game Day. I feel like people should tweet that at College Game Day, I believe, on Twitter. Let's talk about the AAC. It's been a rotating chair. It's just teams going in and out. It hasn't been the as an ECU fan, I can say, like, I don't know how excited I am about the AAC as an overall conference. Now, I like some of the stadiums within the AAC, but it's just, I like steady rivalries. I like, I don't know. I want to dive into the new teams and the new stadiums and the overall perception. But before I do that, I want to say that you are listening to the Stadium Heads podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. And look, you're going to want to check out the latest episode of the SGP Stories podcast. It's out on our Patreon. The guys, myself, Sean Stack and the Money Green, and Ryan Real Money Kramer do a Forensic Files style deep dive on the Bobby Petrino motorcycle accident that cost him his job. And I might be wearing a neck brace with a Sugar Bowl hat on. And we're doing a reenactment too. So jump on over there, check that out. Plus make sure to check out the WNBA Gambling Podcast, as Terrell and Scott have started out red hot with their locks. And remember, as always, folks, too, let it ride. All right, back on the Stadium Heads AAC Stadium preview and just continuing another chapter of our work as we've previewed. We just got done with the Sun Belt a week ago. Before that was the Mountain West / Pac-2. All the power conferences are out there. So if you're listening to this for the first time and you're a Baylor fan, it's out there. Any of the power schools, it's out there. So yeah, this one, it hits home for me because my team is the East Carolina Pirates. And, in general, aside from stadium, I know we're just here to talk stadiums. I am not, I understand the AAC money is better than the Sun Belt, and I understand that that's supposed to be a win, but it's not like that money's in my account. All right. So I don't, so many times I'll bring up to friends of mine that I know from ECU or, the ECU subreddit. They just think because we have this money that's invisible, that never touches them, that's why we're better in the AAC than the Sun Belt. And I disagree. I think fan interest We have long rivalries with Marshall and Southern Miss and stuff like that. So as much as I like the new development of the Charlotte ECU series. I think that's fun. UAB and Charlotte, or UAB and ECU have a little bit of history, but the conference has been changing so much that I have a hard time attaching myself to it. So overall, yes, there's some great stadiums and I'm excited to talk about them. There's also some stadiums that I can't wait for them to potentially get on campus. It just seems like kind of a mix of everything. What's your overall assessment of this conference?
So I would say currently you got your finger on the pulse. That's what it is. It's a mixed bag of historic stadiums like Mikey Stadium and the Liberty Bowl. And then you have some, school, East Carolina, the biggest on-campus G5 stadium. And then, you have some newer programs, just newer programs in general, FAU and UTSA and Charlotte. And so I think that if you crystallize what it is right now, it's definitely a mixed bag. But we have to give credit where credit is due. UCF, Cincinnati, Tulane, what they have done in the past few years with big victories, playoff appearances, big bowl game wins like UCF over Auburn in the Peach Bowl. They have a big say in what happened with the realignment and the playoff bracket. And so the conference is recovering. We don't like to think maybe it's a step up conference because we don't know what's going to happen, but they put out Houston and UCF and Cincinnati, who accomplished a lot on the big stage, and now they have to replenish. And let's hope that some of these new additions do that, not just because they're markets, not because they bring in TV contracts, because they're the next in line to make an impact in G5 football.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think, we'll talk about some of the stadiums that potentially could be coming or are coming, and then some of the classic stadiums that reside within this conference. ECU, for me personally, I know I'm getting specific by talking about them, but there's not many historic rivalries in this. It's almost like I have friends. I host my college basketball experience show with Ryan McIntyre, who's a West Virginia grad. And, he hosts outside of the SGPN network, he does a West Virginia podcast. And we always meet up and he's always like, man, I like being in the Big 12, but it's like because of our money, but I don't care about Baylor. Like, I don't care about Texas Tech. You know what I mean? So it's like, you feel like a man without a country in a way. You know what I mean? You're just like, so even in the AAC, I like the Charlotte one developing, but I sit there and I look around and I go who do I have any animosity towards? Or it's I try to convince myself that Memphis and Tulane, because they've been in the AAC and the Conference USA so much, but really I feel like the Sun Belt's blueprint is more successful, even though they don't have the TV contract yet. Long term, I think that might end up with more TV money than the AAC. We'll see. But anyway, there are some classic stadiums, folks, and you come to us for stadium talk, but we also love college football. So I did want to dive in on that a little bit. It's I just hope these teams can stay there for a long enough amount of time that they build that. That would be fair too. I do like the Army edition. Believe it or not, I think that's great because they have Navy and they have some other affiliations with schools. ECU's played Army for a long time as well. So there is that. Let's jump into this though, because the last time you visited, we're going to rattle off all the AAC teams currently. And the last time Michael, aka College Football Campus Tour, has been to these stadiums, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. The last times that let me just drop that. The last time you were at Army and Mikey Stadium, once again, they are brand new to the to the AAC. You caught Miami, Ohio at Mikey Stadium there in West Point, New York. You were last season hanging out with Biff Poggi and the Charlotte 49ers as the Florida Atlantic Owls came into Charlotte, North Carolina. You have not been to ECU since 2021 when the South Florida Bulls went down to Greenville, North Carolina. COVID season for you in Boca Raton as UMass came into FAU. You were at the Liberty Bowl in 2022 as the Navy midshipmen took on Memphis. I feel like that's always a weeknight game for the most part. You were in Annapolis, Maryland as Marshall took on Navy in 2021. You were in Denton, Texas, checking out North Texas, the COVID year, as well as the UTEP Miners came in. The Rice Owls, you were in Houston, Texas, at Rice Stadium, as Wake Forest came in 2019. So that's the furthest stadium date-wise that you haven't been back since, is the Rice Owls. You were in Philadelphia at the Link, checking out the Temple Owls, as UCF came in there in 2021. You were at Yeoman Stadium in New Orleans, checking out UCF Tulane in 2022. And you were at South Florida at Tulsa, H.A. Chapman Stadium 2022 as well as UAB. The Flaming Libs of Liberty came into Birmingham to take on UAB in 2021. Tulsa at South Florida, Raymond James Stadium, COVID season. Last time you were there. And then the Alamo Dome you were at last year, as South Florida took on the Roadrunners. You know, my first question is Rice and UCF, I'm sorry, not UCF, USF and North Texas high on the list, as well as FAU?
So yes, but the schedule dictates too. So I know USF has a Friday night game. I want to say in October. I know that who else? There is UTSA always has one. I know Charlotte plays on Halloween. I know East Carolina plays in I think November 8th. And so we're going to try to get back to some of those. FAU is playing on November 1st. I'm looking at this thing, and I actually went to Memphis last year, and I sent you 2022 instead of 2023. So we want to be able to get to as many as possible. With some of these, I'll give you North Texas, Rice. There are so many schools in Texas that we don't know the kick times yet, but those are big candidates for 2-for-1. So take Rice, for example. You got Houston, you got Houston Christian, you got Texas A&M, you got Lamar, you got Austin. All of those are in there. So right now, a couple of them are slotted. I would say ECU for sure, FAU for sure, and then we're going to try to find spots for the other ones as the season goes on.
There we go, folks. Look at that travel, though. I mean, it's all of them within, for the most part. You know, if you exclude Rice, all of them within the past 3 college football seasons. So you got to dig that. Look, before we dive into the Army Black Knights, folks. First off, I see 480 people watching. Hit that like and subscribe button. Once again, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. I want to tell you, folks, that the Stadium Heads podcast is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Pick 8 is now live. Create entries with up to 8 picks. An Underdog will automatically double flex entries so you can miss up to 2 picks and still win your entry. With more picks to make and extra ways to win, the excitement is higher than ever. The best part, you can win up to 325 times your original amount. You can now use specials and boost on all flexed entries. So don't miss your chance to try it out before it's gone. They got college football. They got college basketball. I was playing CFL earlier, so jump over. Plus, if you're already a user, deposit between now and UFC 303 for a 10% bonus cash. So sign up. And when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's underdogfantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Circa Survivor and Circa Millions. Yes, get out to the greatest sports book of them all, Circa, in Las Vegas. They have several locations, by the way, now. Circa Sports is back, though, with their Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. And, of course, Circa contests have no rake. All right. Circa Millions pick 5 NFL teams, ATS, each week and compete for $6 million or survive the NFL gauntlet to claim the $10 million prize at the end of the line. Sign up in person at Circa between now and September 7th and use a proxy to play from anywhere. We have a deal with footballcontestproxy.com to save you $50 with the promo code SGP. So hop on over there too. But if you don't have your trip booked yet for Las Vegas before football, may I recommend the Ultimate Contest Weekend? It's a great time to go out. You can hang with my pals from the Sports Gambling Podcast, Sean Stacking the Money Green and Ryan Real Money Kramer, and enjoy some of the open bar events at the greatest sports book in the world there, August 22nd through August 24th. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride. All right, we're back on the Stadium Heads Podcast, AAC Stadiums, and let's just jump into the first stadium here. It is the Army Black Knights Mikey Stadium. I'm a huge fan of history, and this one 100 years old, West Point, New York, seats just about 42,765. Tell me about your travels to Mikey, because I can tell you this. I interviewed Randy. Well, I pretty much interview Randy Cross every couple months, but if you go listen to one of our Randy Cross interviews, he's a former San Francisco 49er, won a bunch of Super Bowls with Bill Walsh and played with Dick Vermeil at UCLA. He, through CBS Sports and covering, he was with CBS for the NFL, and then he switched down to college, and he covered a lot of Navy games, but in general, just a ton of CBS Sports events. He loves Mikey Stadium. He tells me the experience is unique. There's nothing like it in college football. He says, go there in autumn, though. He says, don't go September. Get there in October, November. He loves Mikey Stadium. He thinks it's one of the more underrated stadiums in all of college football. Your thoughts, Michael?
Well, I agree with them that it's a must visit. I'm not sure if it's underrated. I know that Sports Illustrated rated it the third best sports venue of the 20th century. So a lot of accolades for this place. It's a confluence of things. First of all, it's on a military campus, very unique. You can visit off times. You got to go through a background check. You got to have them search your vehicle. And when you tell them that you're not there to explore the whole campus and you're going to the football stadium, they kind of look at you cross-eyed. But this photo right here is my second point, which is this was the epicenter of college football at one point. Now, in the beginning of college football, it was the Ivies dominated, and then it branched out, and there was the Notre Dames and the Armies and the Navies. But when you go here, you really see the history. I mean, right there, you got 3 Heisman Trophy winners. They've, obviously won national championships. But this stadium has grown over time. It started at 16,000 seats. It's up 42,000. The location, it backs to the Lusk Reservoir, and if you get high enough, it's you can see the Hudson River. But neo-Gothic design is the architecture. It's this intersection of what we love about college football mixed in with the military, and it gives you that appreciation. And they have all the cadets lined up there on the roadside, and so it's pageantry, it's history, it's location, and it's all accessible to college football fans. 5 or 6 Saturdays a season. So I think it's a great addition to the conference, and fans of the AAC, if you get an opportunity to check a road game out, definitely you got to go.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. And, ECU is going to be playing there, I think, this year, but I don't know about this year, but in the future, I do want to get up there for a game, preferably when ECU's there, but if not, just whenever. Yeah, love that. You got the Hudson River there. Now they're doing some type of construction on this. I saw a video on their Twitter account, I guess, or maybe if not their Twitter account, that someone that, a beat writer that covers them that I follow. I saw recently they took down. Is it the one right across from this photo right now?
So I'm not sure what the status is. I know that they want to do it.
It went down. They destroyed it. I saw the photos of something in the past couple months has been torn down.
It's supposed to be the roadside bleachers there. So where you see the cadets lined up right there, that's supposed to all come down. They're going to make it much taller. It's going to be, the classic, the suites, the premium seating. And on the one hand, it's going to give you great back views of the reservoir and the trees back there, but it's going to be much taller, and it's going to block a lot of the view from the upper part of the home side. But this is what they want. This is 42,000 seats. They're not always getting 42,000, and they want to provide that comfort. And if you're paying for a premium seat, then you can look in one direction and see Army football, and you can look in the other direction and you can see a reservoir and trees and mountains. I mean, that's what you want. So I didn't know that it started, but I know that it's been in the works for a couple of years.
Yeah, I saw a video just recently, past couple of weeks, of it being knocked down and the rubble, and then whoever was covering it was saying that they're working on the progress on it, but
it's definitely not going to be ready. It's definitely not going to be ready for the season if they knocked it down. So this would be a construction zone. It's going to take at least 2 years whenever they start.
Yeah. So FYI, if you're planning to go, you might want to wait. This is something that I find interesting about in general in this conference, and I know I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole here, but we have this thing, this 12-team playoff looming on the sport, which I think is going to be like steroids to the sport. I think you're going to find fan bases in the group of 5 come October that, all of a sudden they're in the race. Now that could be Army. Monken's had really good years there. I wonder if, because I can tell you, man, I as someone that is an ECU fan, we have a passionate fan base, but I remember conversations with people on campus when I go back and visit and tailgate. And I'd say sometimes there would be some guys tailgating that didn't even go to the game. They were just there to get drunk. And they were kind of just saying, college football has flaws because we can't go anywhere. We can't go anywhere. Now you can. And I wonder, long term, does that build up these fan bases in the group of 5 that maybe, even if you're playing at an NFL stadium or so, I know Army's not that case, but South Florida or something, or UTSA playing at the old Spurs Stadium. I wonder if that becomes, if that ignites the fan bases and you gain more fans that aren't accustomed to it. They see the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow now. Before it was like, no, you need like a million things. It's like, I wonder if that could be a thing that could bring in like, I haven't been to West Point, New York. I've never been to West Point, New York, but I wonder if the local community, if say they're 8-1 on Halloween weekend, are they starting to buy in and saying we could make the playoffs? Let's get out to a game. What do you think?
Well, I think you're bringing it up with the perfect school, because Army has been independent forever. And unless you're Notre Dame, you're not playing for anything as an independent, and you're trying to get the most lucrative games. You're trying to get home games. You're trying to fill out your schedule and postseason stuff. Hopefully you make a bowl, but you're right. It's demoralizing in some sense. And so Army joining a conference automatically gets them in the competitive standings. Okay, we do this well and we're going to be there. That's number one. Maybe not, in the next 2 or 3 years, a college football playoff for Army, but the AAC plays their conference championship game at home of the best team. And so, in your scenario where they start off 8-1, somebody tweeted this out today, and I saw it. It's like, imagine the AAC championship at Mikey Stadium the first week of December. They've never had football the first week of December at West Point. And so you get a team that has been in independent purgatory for years. All of a sudden they join a conference. You get some of the big hitters exiting the conference. There's that opportunity. They always play on a Friday night. And this year it's the CUSA, Mountain West, and AAC play on that Friday night. Mikey Stadium hosting the championship, that's almost must-see TV right there. So I agree. I think that the playoff in the long term for some of these schools, incentivize you to get a path to the playoff. But in the short term, somebody like Army, man, imagine hosting the AAC championship.
Yeah, and that them and Temple and Navy are about the only teams in really cold weather. Maybe you can sell me on Tulsa. I think I'd be
I've frozen my ass in Tulsa, so yes,
yeah,
I will agree.
Yeah. I think Tulsa sneaky. You think like, hey, it's Oklahoma. That shit gets cold.
Oh man. Especially when you're sleeping in the car. That's bad right there. Yeah. I got my cold face going already. Yeah.
Folks, give him a follow. The guy's sleeping in his car outside of the only thing I can think of in like Arkansas or Oklahoma is Walmart. So it's like
quick trip. That's what comes in my head right there. Oh yeah. Oof. All right. Let's move on.
This stadium's beautiful though, man. Like this shot right here, fire, absolute fire. And this right here. Now, where are you at right here for this?
So you're right behind the first shot where you showed the back of Mikey Stadium. This is looking in the other direction. And you mentioned Randy Cross say, don't go in September, I went in. This was actually the week after the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And so they played Western Kentucky on the anniversary. I really wanted to go, but I just couldn't figure out a way to double it up. And so this next week I went to a game at Army at noon, and then I went to a game at Marist College at 6 p.m. But, yes, we want the elements, but look at the beauty. It's beautiful out there. And so part of going to Mikey Stadium, you want to go to the home side, go all the way to the top so you can overlook the stands and look at it. And then you also want to go behind the roadside and you want to walk around along the reservoir, because, we see these stadium photos where there's a body of water nearby or there's a mountain nearby. This body of water is 50 feet from the back of the stadium, and you can stand there the whole time. So the scenery is actually a part of the stadium and not something that's nearby or in the background.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Look at that. It's like you got like a forest / a hill. In certain ways, it reminds me of App State. In certain ways,
it does.
Yeah.
And when you think about the old stadium, so lop the original stadium, lop the top off that first, so the second level didn't exist, the press box didn't exist, and the roadside didn't exist. So it was this little U shape, all looking out at the water. And of course, when you have a good thing, you're going to expand on it. It is what it is. Obviously, they made the visitor side lower so it doesn't take up the view of the home side. But part of the, my personal trepidation about the expansion on the roadside is they're going to block some of the view. So we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, this is the history of college football exists right here, and it is living and breathing. You can go back and check it out and learn and catch quality football.
And some of the history there, like Vince Lombardi coached on this field. You know what I mean? You can do a deep dive on. So that's what I love about college football is like you're just getting a ton of history with it too. You know what I mean? Like they've protected this. This is the same field that Vince Lombardi coached on. This is, and that's not the only one. There's a slew of coaches that Bobby Ross and just a lot of just a lineage of great players and coaches. Tom Landry's been on this field. You know what I mean? Like that. I love that. And it should be protected, almost like our national parks. I feel like that's our duty, Michael, is to say, hey, this is, we got to protect this thing. I think it's so cool. I was doing a deep dive recently on, just coaches and where they're Bill Parcells coached. He was an assistant here. You know what I mean? Like that the energy of these, I haven't been to this place, so I'm just saying, but the energy of a lot of these places that, this history, I think it's just phenomenal that they're still playing at the same place for 100 years. Folks, look, before we jump along, I want to say also that the Stadium Heads podcast is brought to you by Rhythm. If you're betting on player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm is the go-to sports betting tool that transforms complex data into actionable insights, empowering bettors with smarter, data-driven decisions. Unlike other platforms, Rhythm combines advanced predictive analytics with an intuitive user experience, making betting both easy and enjoyable. And Rhythm's predictive models were born from the brains of MIT data scientists and quants with over 3 years of data that help drive you to better AI-backed betting decisions. So what are you doing, folks? Claim your free 7-day trial period today. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. Yeah, the stadium, just awesome. Next up, though, we are going to Jerry Richardson Stadium. I'm sorry, I gotta laugh for a second. One of my favorite stories, not even stories, no one covered it. I feel like except I feel like me and Sean and Ryan on the SGP show. So the Me Too movement started, and Jerry Richardson sold the Carolina Panthers in about 5 minutes. I've never seen a team get sold so fast, and no one covered it. It was like over the weekend, right? I know he had some shady shit going on, because like the Me Too movement was going on, and like all I saw was like Carolina Panthers up for sale as of like Friday. By Monday, that team was gone. You know what I mean? He didn't own that thing. But he still has a statue at the Bank of America Stadium. And then he obviously still a factor in Charlotte, North Carolina, because this is Jerry Richardson Stadium for the Charlotte 49ers in Charlotte, North Carolina. 11 years old. One thing I will say about the AAC is they got these new stadiums. You look at UAB, you look at Tulane, you look at Charlotte, and we got South Florida coming. That's exciting to me is you do have new stadiums. I know Biff Poggi, the head coach of Charlotte, was talking about building onto this thing a season ago. So this seats 15,314 people. Charlotte didn't have a program 20 years ago. So to me, it's still encouraging. Tell me about your travels to Jerry Richardson Stadium.
So I've been to 3 games at Charlotte. I went to a COVID game 2020. I went to a game in 2022. It was part of my only triple header ever. So Gardner Webb, 11 a.m., Charlotte, 4 p.m., Wake Forest, 8 p.m. So, and then last year they had a weeknight game, and most of all the night photos you're seeing here, they're all from that game. This is a interesting stadium because it was designed to expand. So you mentioned it has 15,000 seats now. That was the minimum when it was built to be an FBS school. They started in FCS for 1 or 2 years, but part of the plan was to jump up right away. It is expandable from up to 40,000 seats, and renovation to get it to 30,000 is pretty much imminent. What they're going to do is that small press box that you see there, they're going to knock it down and they're going to put in a bigger press box. But when you look at the aerial view of this photo, the whole above the stands is all flat, and it was designed for the increase. So as you're mentioning in this conference, there's a lot of newer programs and newer stadiums. They're forward thinking, and a crazy football state like North Carolina having a program in a giant city like Charlotte, it makes sense. If they can get a few things going, then they can expand the stadium. So, we take it for what it is right now. And, last year they hosted the famous Toastery Bowl, which was the Bahamas Bowl, but they were doing stadium renovations in the Bahamas. So it made a 1-year appearance here. So there's a lot of progress. There's a lot of hope here. And with the big teams vacating the conference the last couple of years, there's definitely opportunity for Charlotte as well as a lot of teams in the conference.
I think they're a sleeping giant. I mean, I know we're talking stadiums here, but I like the look of it. I know it's small, but I kind of dig the look of it. I feel like the fan base is starting to get ignited. And Charlotte's a growing city. We just talked about the looming 12-team playoff, which, like I said, I also think they'll expand that thing because of the money. But why can't it be Charlotte? You're close to everything. You know what I mean? North Carolina is a great, underrated high school football state. And then you're close. You're not even that far from Atlanta when you're in Charlotte. Georgia's got a ton of talent. You know what I mean? Tennessee's got a ton of talent. South Carolina's you're right next to South Carolina. So I think they have a very bright future. I wish more universities would take that approach that didn't have. I can remember a time 20 years ago where I would say, I'm surprised Charlotte doesn't have a football team. What are they doing? Why do they not have a football program? I would say Long Beach State, a lot of schools out there that to me, they're head scratchers when you think like, why don't they have a football program? Charlotte was one of those that acknowledged that. And then, I like the look of it too. I think the look of it is kind of cool, man. The brick building to me.
Yeah.
I guess
so
that's small, but cool. Yeah.
It's a football center. It's 46,000 square feet. It's got that brick facade, which matches really well. You could see that retaining wall going around the whole thing. It's pretty close to the sideline. We're not filling in an old track or anything. The bleachers are very close. You get close in the end zone, and it's especially with the flat upper level, it's very easy to navigate. And I agree with you. This is not even a stadium thing, but they changed their logo a couple of years ago, and they went to that C with the pick in it, and it looks great. It's great on logos, and so there's a lot of opportunity there. I don't know if I sent you a couple other photos. I don't know if you that's what I want to talk about. So this was very interesting. So this is called the Niner Club, and it's above the visitor side. And what this is like a bar, and they construct it, and it's portable, and they put it up there during the football season. There's couches, they're serving alcohol. There's a couple, like 3 rows of seats in front of it that are attached. You have to have a bracelet. I think it's like $100 a game, which is not crazy. And this thing is portable. So after the football season, they move it over to the basketball arena. And I posted this tweet with these photos on Twitter, and, things spark ideas. And I'm guessing there's going to be some copycats going forward. But this is, again, while your stadium is not the 30,000 stadium, seat capacity that you want it to be yet, because you're in progress, do this, put some unique things there. And this was very positively received on social media.
Hell yeah. I mean, anytime you add a bar to the mix, that's what, I mean, I think every stadium should. I still can't believe sometimes they do announcements like, oh, they're going to be selling alcohol at the stadium. What? They didn't before. And I see the the Modelo logo there. Shout out to Modelo, who hooked up Michael last week with a bunch, and they're the sponsor of the college football playoff this year. Check out Modelo if you're going to go out there, get a beer, grab a Modelo. But yeah, I mean, I was shocked, like. I think when Colorado hired Deion Sanders, they're like, this year we're going to sell alcohol. I'm like, I don't understand how universities can steal money in so many other avenues and then just be that dumb. Like a textbook. I did UCLA screenwriting, right? I remember buying a textbook for whatever price it was like $75 or something, $50, something like that. First day of class. The writer of Bull Durham, Ron Shelton, tells me, "Hey, I don't buy into that book. We're not going to use that." And I go, "Oh, okay. Well, that right after class, I go to the bookstore. I said, I haven't even used this. Didn't even open it, and I bought it yesterday. You can see my receipt. It's right here. That'll be oh no, you know what? I'm sorry. That was $70. I bought it for $300. They charged $70 to get it back. And I was like, wait a second. I never read the book. This hasn't been open. This has been sitting here for 24 hours. I have the receipt. But they don't have a bar? Come on, that's where you can really make your money. All right. You stop jacking up students' books. All right.
That's like Seinfeld, where George took the book in the bathroom and then he couldn't return it. You remember that story?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you're giving me the same vibes. You should have got your money's worth.
I never even took it into the bathroom. I would understand it a little bit more if I had done that.
They didn't believe you. They saw your face and they're like, "This guy's in the bathroom." That's what they think. So, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, nothing like sitting on a couch. This is creative what they're doing here. A couch area to I don't even know. Can you even view the game from the couch?
So if you see on the right side of the photo, you see all the people looking the other way. So they're watching the game. So this is, and what we hope for is that you access this before the game and at halftime, and then you take your drink and you either go back to your seat and you stand there. But when we look at concessions, how many concessions have a view of the field? They don't, right? You have to leave your seat. You have to miss the game to go to concessions. Some stadiums are going to deliver to you, and a lot of G5s, they don't have that. So this is kind of that middle ground here where you're offering these close to the action. You don't have to leave. And if you're paying the $100 a seat, which is not crazy, you can be a part of this the whole game. And if you're not missing the game. So it's a unique idea. And I think that I think this was really spark some ideas, and maybe we'll see a couple more of these this fall.
Yeah. Agreed. I dig it. Oh, what do we got next? Dowdy Ficklin Stadium. Yeah, Dowdy Ficklin Stadium, ECU, East Carolina, the Pirates. We got a couple things. I will lead in with former East Carolina Pirate coach Steve Logan.
Because when you're at East Carolina, you go for it every time. Or you don't coach at East Carolina, you don't come to East Carolina, you don't play at East Carolina with a weak heart. Write it. In the spirit of ECU, we believe every moment there was nothing that we couldn't do. We set out to defend our name, and now we'll never be the same.
Now that is from our 1991 season with that fire music that is available on YouTube for anyone out there in the universe that wants to grab that. In 91, had it been this current year, we would have been in the playoffs because we won the Peach Bowl. We beat NC State, the Pussy Pack, I like to call them. And we handled business. We had Jeff Blake at quarterback. I love my experiences at East Carolina, especially going to college football games. Now, my only thing I will say is I feel like through talking to you, Michael, you went your first years traveling to Greenville, I believe, were the Scotty Montgomery years, which I have I have long said he was a spy. He was a mole because we were dominating Duke, NC State, and at UNC. If you look up historically, for like 20 years, we were dominating them. And Duke sent in their offensive coordinator, Scotty Montgomery, to ruin our program. And I mean, when I say ruin, like Navy put up 76 points against ECU. You know what I mean? Like there was some dark days. And you happened to catch the back end of those dark days. And I got to be honest, I was so mad that we fired Ruffin McNeil because it was a double entendre. It was like, I didn't understand Scotty Montgomery being a thing at Duke. I didn't think he was killing it. So I was confused by the hire, but I was confused by the firing of a former East Carolina Pirate himself, Ruffin McNeil, who had Lincoln Riley. He was smart enough to bring Lincoln Riley with him, former Mike Leach guy, had done wonders for our program, but some athletic director stepped in and said, no, I want my guy, brought Scotty Montgomery in, and we've been struggling ever since. Now, Mike Houston comes over from JMU, kind of got us out of that mix. I know Phil Steele, if you got his magazine, there is a number one most improved team in the nation. He thinks that they're actually a contender in the AAC. We'll see, because Mike Houston, to me, I'm still on the fence. I know he's way better than Scotty Montgomery, but I think I could have been better than Scotty Montgomery. But let me tell folks, this stadium, and I know what game is this you're at, because this is pathetic in my opinion.
So this was 2021 versus USF on a Thursday night, and it rained like hell the second half. But this was a first half photo, and it was not a full crowd, as you can tell.
I think our fan base is a bit shell shocked, but it terrifies me like that. This is, this now that was 1 year removed from Scotty Montgomery. We did have an 8-win season 2 years ago, but in my, there was articles. I wish I should have done a deep dive and pulled this up. I remember before I even went to ECU, I remember Sports Illustrated doing a story about how the SEC should add ECU because their passionate fan base, their football success. Because we had Pat Dye in the 80s with Ernest Biner and everything. And then in the 90s, we had really, really good seasons. The Miami Hurricanes, some of their years where they only had one loss were against ECU. So we had this thing really rolling. And what David Garrard and stuff, that era, that's when tailgating here was like, this was everything. When I'm embarrassed by this. When I see this photo, I'm embarrassed by it. But I also think the AAC, once again, to bring it back home from before, I think when we play Rice, we don't care about Rice. All right. We don't care about North Texas. UTSA, we slightly care about because they're good, but it's like, that's just because you tell us they're good. When I think of the Sun Belt and Southern Miss, there's a long historic rivalry with ECU and Southern Miss. There's Marshall. There's App State within conference. I don't know. I just feel like, and look, you're seeing some of the rich history we have. Jeff Blake, Chris Johnson. Robert Jones, who won a bunch of Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys, the Peach Bowl there. I don't understand how we're not back at that, era. I like, we owned Virginia Tech for a little bit there. We were with Beamer. Like that was their hardest game of the year was playing ECU. But so I'm disappointed in your travel, like not your travels, but that was what you saw. I want to take you back to Dowdy, get rowdy at the Dowdy, like the way it should be. But has every time you've been there been weak?
A weeknight?
Like weak, or just the crowd just didn't show up?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. It's so yes. And I got to say a couple things. First of all, you talk about like being jealous of travels. I'm jealous that you have an alma mater that has football. Okay. I went to UC San Diego, who had one football team in 1968. They went 0-7. The students voted if they should bring the team back, and the students said no, and there goes football. Okay. So, but what you're talking about is having this, the social media presence of ECU fans are great. Every time I do a stadium poll, that they were in the final 2 years ago, they always are there. They talk about the same thing that you're talking about. So both times I've been there, it has been weak. And they have a game. It's November 8th. It's a Thursday night. It's against FAU. and the next night is Wake Forest playing at home on a Friday, so that's an easy twofer back-to-back, I will be at that game. I know you're mentioning that, certain teams are not a rival, and I know that FAU is not a rival, but my hope is that they get off to a good start from a selfish perspective, not just because I'm your friend, but I want them to get off to a good start, and maybe that game will mean a lot because FAU is good too. So I'm open-minded. I'm not going to pigeonhole, what I've seen. I've been there in the empty stadium, and I love the stadium, but the student section even is filling it up, even in this, weeknight sparse crowd. I would love to be there for a vibe because it's the largest on-campus G5 stadium that we have. We don't have 50,000 seat stadiums in the G5. Last week we did the Sun Belt. Most of them are between 25 and 30,000. This is double. So I want to experience what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I have a shot on my wall here. I know you can't see it. That's hung up from a game, and I'm gonna add a photo that you did not take in a minute to what I'm talking about. And there's a reason why that stadium's that big. It's because we were packing crowds for that long. We've gone through some dark days, but the blueprint is still there. And I think we're sleeping giant from that regard. Like I was in Cabo and I walked into an ECU bar. The fan base is there. You know what I mean? Like the fan base is there. And to me, it's just regionality matters in college football. I really buy into that. ECU was an independent for a lot of those years I talk about when they had great success. We played South Carolina every year. We played Virginia Tech every year. Those are all within like 4 or 5. NC State almost every other year, or North Carolina, or Duke, or Wake. I do believe when we joined the Conference USA, that it still had enough at the time. It had enough where you were still playing some local teams, but at the same time, it started that break off to me, and then that translated to the AAC. Now I still believe like the fans are there. The dynamite is there. You just have to light it. A perfect example. This was not that long ago. This shot right here, which I know you did not take, but this was, I believe, against North Carolina. And this was a couple years removed. This is just, I think, Scotty Montgomery's first year. So it's not that long ago. This is like in the past 7-8 years. It's there. We care about regionality though. We don't give a shit about playing Rice. You know what I mean? Like, so we got to get it back to that. Look, and I'm probably going to move over there. So, I mean, I'm going to be at games. So we're going to have to make this work. So come on out, folks. This shot's fire, by the way, but yeah. What's up?
So we've spent a lot of time, especially in G5s, talking about if these programs can have a couple things happen, right? Hire the right guy or make a stadium improvement or wherever, then they could pop. ECU just needs to win because they got everything else. They got the stadium, they got the tradition, they got the fan base. And, we talked about Army coming in from an independent. Well, they have less rivals in the conference than ECU, and if they catch fire, it could be a good place. So again, same thing applies to ECU. I'm thinking of the AAC championship in Greenville with 50,000. Good luck to whoever's coming to there. So there's teams that we root for. I mean, we root for everybody, but in particular, when you see one that is just missing the wins, do it. Let's go. And I mean, I know everyone's trying, but that's all they need.
And I feel like during the Skip Holtz era, like he did great with us, but there were he would have a year where he'd go 5-7 or something occasionally, but we still bought in. If Scotty Montgomery, we would lose so bad. You go look at some of those seasons, we lose every game was by 40 points. We were one of the bottom 5 worst teams out of 100, and that depleted the fan base. To me, that was good God. Mike Houston's been picking it up, but it's there. You just got to ignite that thing. I think if Mike Houston doesn't get it done this year, they're probably going to can him. And then it becomes really interesting because you have a slew of candidates. Lincoln Riley was here with his brother. His brother's the offensive coordinator of Clemson. I think he might be interested in the job. I also think Rich Rodriguez could be interested with the job, but it's there. It's there. I'm not wishing failure on Mike Houston. I'm just saying he's got to prove it to me this year. But I It's got to get back to where it is or where it was. You know what I mean? So anyway, moving along, let's go to Boca Raton, Florida Atlantic, the Owls, FAU Stadium, aka they also call it Howard Schnellenberger Field, which I love. 13 years old. This is another one that I dig. The fact that it's new, they have their own stadium, seats 29,571. Tell me about your experiences down to Boca Raton.
So I've been to 2 games there. This shot is from the COVID year. It was a game made like 3 weeks before against UMass on either a Thursday or a Friday night. No one there. Final score 21-2, which is not easy to do. And FAU won. But when we were, at the time during COVID year, there was only certain teams even allowing fans. So to get a new stadium on a weeknight, I was very happy to do that. Last year, I went to the actual Boca Raton Bowl, and that was between Syracuse and USF. And there was a pretty good crowd there, and I got to explore the stadium. You mentioned that the Howard Schnellenberger Field, the original coach for the program, they played their first year in 2001 at Pro Player Stadium, which became Hard Rock. Then they played for 9 years at a stadium called Lockhart Stadium. And then this was built on campus in 2011. It's a beautiful stadium. 30,000 seats. It's, you saw those palm trees out there. It's a very unique setup. It buys into the whole vibe in Boca Raton. They always talk about the university is 1.8 miles from the beach. So these shots from the Boca Raton Bowl, they were a little bit better representation of what you might get at a FAU game. And they have a game November 1st, man. There's a San Diego State game, there's a Boise State game, and there's a FAU game all on the same day. And right now, I want to replace the COVID photos. And so FAU is the leader in the clubhouse for me to go there on November 1st.
Yeah, I must say that I love what they're doing. Now, South Florida is getting a stadium on campus, but I'm still reluctant. Like the image that they last year, they had they revealed these uniforms with a palm tree on their helmet that I thought were fantastic. I thought, I know it sounds crazy to bring up just, hey, this is why I like the look of the of the uniforms, but I believe there's something to playing to your identity, and they call this the beach. I know Dusty May, their basketball coach, who just left for the Michigan job. He would bike to the stadium, the basketball stadium. I know they take a lot of pride in it being so close to the beach. I like that. I think that gives it personality. When you're just a school in Florida, there's a lot of schools in Florida, first off, but anywhere, you got to make it your own. You got to stand out from the rest. And I think Danny White did such a good job with turning Central Florida into UCF and claiming that national championship and keeping their name in the press, essentially. You creating the bounce house, stuff like that. Now you look at what FAU can do. I think they're one that actually might even have a leg up on USF from that. Maybe not on the field performance, but as far as they have an identity, and I like leaning into that. I really do, and I think they might have something going. Continuing to use those palm trees, continue to own the beach, come to the beach, play ball at the beach. I think that's their recruiting pitch. As you see it hashtag on their Twitter page. But yeah, I really like it. Oh, they got an obstructed viewpoint, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. Love that. This is the bowl game, I take it, or the COVID game?
Yeah, so this is the bowl game, and these are two funny photos to me. And, obviously the obstructed view photo, we're always going to try to get that. There's a camera well there, it blocks part of the field, so we got a photo. The other photo is, so last week we had fun with the Eastern Michigan bowl game at South Alabama, 59-3. So you can't really tell, but at this point, it's about 13 minutes. What does that say? 14:29 in the fourth quarter, and USF is up 38-0 over Syracuse. And they got the cleaning crew going through the stands with 14 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And so, I'm still exploring the stadium. I'm still doing my thing. And people are like, hey, we're just going to clean up and we're going to do it. So
trying to get out of here, trying to catch the newest episode.
They want to
be
right? They want to be done cleaning when the gun goes off. Like that's what they want to leave with everybody else. But there's some symmetry between what Eastern Michigan fans experienced at the '68 Ventures Bowl and Syracuse fans experienced at the Boca Raton Bowl. But again, I'm with you. The whole vibe is cool, and they do a great job of marketing. And this photo on the left, that's a statue of Howard Schnellenberger. And then there's a whole ass subway inside of FAU Stadium, and I never seen that before.
Random, but hey, I mean,
what I said was they were trying to build the stadium and they bought out everybody, but Subway wouldn't be bought out, so they just built the stadium around the subway, like they encompassed it. But you'll see places that have concessions or a Subway nearby. How many times can you get a Subway in there? And so I put this on Twitter, and it went pretty crazy during the Boca Raton Bowl. So and we want to get back in, like I said, November 1st. I'm really hopeful to get that non-COVID game there. Coach Lunsford, I know him. I interviewed him back in the day, and obviously Coach Herman. So they got some great things going there, and it's fun. And I think everybody should hopefully come join me on November 1st.
Hell yeah. And Cannabis Capper saying Subway at a stadium sounds legit. You're right. If you've had a few cocktails too, like you're just looking for something, big mass of food to fill that void, so you can stay in the game and make sure you're not passed out. You know what I mean? So
that's when you're at your seat and you see somebody walk by and they got a whole Subway sandwich. That's when you get jealous immediately. Like, envy is right there. So you can get all your cravings fulfilled at FAU Stadium.
We cue up the Happy Gilmore. That's why I love my cold cut combo.
There you
go. Let's talk about sacred ground here. The Memphis Tigers play at the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Tennessee. 59 years old. Seats 58,325. Look, I talked about Mikey Stadium. I love Mikey Stadium. I talked about Dowdy Ficklin, which I think is one of the more underrated stadiums, of not just because I went to ECU, but the Liberty Bowl is one. It depends what day you catch me, because I have been in arguments about this. There's only a few stadiums I would say that I've been in arguments about. And I feel like that's been like the Rose Bowl, the Sun Bowl, LA Coliseum, Sam Boyd, and probably this stadium. I think, and Kid Brewer maybe. I love the Liberty Bowl. I think, and I know they're doing like a renovation soon, but you want to talk about personality. This stadium's got personality, man, and it's got history. Jerry Glanville left 2 tickets for Elvis here a long time ago. All right. Shout out to Jerry Glanville. I've been on the show, been on my SGP show a long time, or several times. But there's just a lot of great history here, man. A lot of teams have played here, big time bowl games, big time games. Tennessee Titans played here one year, or the Oilers. I think they were the Oilers then still. But this stadium, I'll put over a lot of stadiums, and I feel like people sleep on this stadium. You want to talk about underrated? This is, to me, the definition of underrated. Your thoughts on the Liberty Bowl?
I mean, you took the words right out of my mouth. I love the Liberty Bowl. Everything about it. Built in 1965, 58,000 seats. So it's bigger than Dowdy Ficklin, but it's not on campus. It's about 3 miles away. The university has acquired it officially, and now they're working on that renovation. So that press box you see with the lit up American flag that looks amazing in this photo right behind the band with the sunset, that's going to be replaced. So, you got a 60-year-old stadium and you're going to reinvest in it, which is awesome. But this place, so you can name the list of tenants that they've had, which is lengthy. Anytime somebody's thinking about another football league, one of the places they always think about going is Memphis. I like this little factoid. So in 1975, they played a baseball exhibition there, and the Braves played, and Hank Aaron was there. And because of the configuration, which you can see is not much movable, or not like a multi-purpose stadium, the right field foul pole was 174 feet from home plate. and Hank Aaron popped the ball up and he hit it out, and they measured it at 200 feet. That was a home run. So at most places, that's going to hit right behind the infield. But I've been to multiple games here. I look forward to going to a game at the Liberty Bowl every time. And you've mentioned in previous episodes about on-campus bowl games and big games and part of the rotation for the college football playoff. Major city, got the capacity, has got the tradition. The university owns it now. This should be a candidate. So you're getting arguments over the ones that you mentioned. This is one that I will get in an argument over as well.
It is flawless, and it's got history, and the fact they're building it up. I'm so glad they didn't decide to build a stadium. You've seen the early looks at it. It looks awesome that they're going to do it. They used to be Memphis State, by the way. They do have obstructed point of view. Once again, youtube.com/@stadiumheadsSGPN. I'm curious if this will stay or go. But either way,
this will stay. So they're doing the other side. So this is one of the top 5 most, I'm going to use the word famous, obstructed view photos out there just because of the comedy, but this is going to stay because it supports the visitor side press box that is up there.
It's just perfect. I mean, look, and just because you have an obstructed view does not mean that's a terrible stadium. I can't hammer that home. A lot of people think Lucas Oil's a great stadium. I think it's terrible personally, but they have an obstructed viewpoint, and that's a recent stadium. I love the Liberty Bowl, man. I think if you put me in charge of college football, our Final Four, and we had to play neutral site games because I love on campus. My Final Four every year would be Rose Bowl, Sun Bowl, Liberty Bowl, and probably that's where the fourth one would probably get the rotating chair. You know what I mean? Between a bunch of other stadiums, but those other 3 would be in that mix. So maybe Sun Devil Stadium. I'm not sure, but it's flawless to me. And Memphis just got a $25 million check from FedEx. The Sky, Penny Hardaway's, the basketball program's going good. The football program, a lot of people have them projected as the team to get the 12-team playoff this year. The sky is the limit for this program, in my opinion.
And they're also a candidate for a P5 or P4 conference. And that's part of the reason the urgency to get the stadium done is because, maybe the 1 or 2 remaining criticisms of Memphis is, hey, the Liberty Bowl's old. Well, you mentioned that all the stadiums named bowl that you love, which I agree with, but I think part of the, first acquiring the ownership of the stadium, they got that down. Now they're working on that, and it's to line up for a breakthrough like UCF or a breakthrough like Houston and a breakthrough like Cincinnati. So major city, huge stadium, great football fans, just take care of upgrades and they may be the next one up in realignment.
Yeah. And they're another one though, that the tradition is there, whether it's recent Memphis players or I just was doing a deep dive. I mentioned Bill Parcells coaching at Army. He's coached at this stadium too. You know what I mean? Like the history. I was doing a deep dive on Vanderbilt and Memphis playing their rivalries, and they had a lot of big time matchups. Well, between the two in-state battles, they would play every year for a long time there. And Coach Parcells was with Vanderbilt. But that not only that, I mean, I could name a million coaches, but I'm saying like I just think the energy when you say old, I think that's to its credit. Like I said, we want a feel to it.
I agree. Yeah. No, it's not a knock at all. It's not a knock at all. It's just the perception of, hey, upgrade that stadium. Okay, we're going to do that. Now what is left on your checklist to criticize? Because we took care of that.
Amen. And look at that skyline, man. And downtown Memphis, that's what I'm saying. You're right with your potential to host a playoff game or something. Downtown Memphis is a fun town. I know people will say, oh, it's dangerous. Okay, yeah. I mean, I live in LA. I could drive 10 miles and it's dangerous. All right. Not even 10 miles, like 10 minutes. But downtown Memphis is awesome, man. Go down there, stay at the Peabody, catch a game at the Liberty Bowl. It's great, man. Catch the history of blues. Yeah.
They've the Liberty Bowl was a bowl game that originated in Philadelphia and it didn't do well. Liberty Bowl, and it ended up in Memphis. And that bowl game has been going on since 1965, and it's usually packed out, and they do great. There's the Southern Heritage Classic, which is HBCU game that's always played there. That's happened since 1990. So this place is accustomed to hosting big events too. So no one is above criticism, but when you look at this from a football perspective, hosting a big event perspective, and then dumping the money into upgrade facilities, I mean, what else could you ask for a G5? And again, they're positioning themselves for some big opportunities possibly.
I can't wait. Can't wait. Excited to see the new stadium too. Let's jump over to Navy Memorial Stadium there, Annapolis, Maryland, 66 years old, 38,303 people it seats currently. The first thing that jumps to mind of something that is 66 years old is Roger Staubach, because he was one of the greatest football players ever, and he played at the stadium. And first off, big fan of checkered end zones. There's only a few teams I feel like Tennessee, Fresno State, and maybe one or two others, but they do it right to me. And I'm a fan of the stadium. And one of the things I'm disappointed with Notre Dame and Navy have had this long-standing rivalry where they play every year. Patty C, shout out to Patty C that did a deep dive on this and was telling me they've been playing for like 100 some years. They've never once played in Annapolis. I mean, come on. That's disappointing. But this stadium is awesome. I'm excited for Brian Newberry to potentially get this program rolling again. And here's something for you. If you had the 12-team playoff over the past 15 years, Navy would have went to the playoffs twice under Ken Niumatalolo. So all of a sudden, it's breathing life into this program. Tell me about your travels to Annapolis.
So I've been to one game there in 2021. They played Marshall, and then I went to the Armed Forces Bowl last year. I want to kind of jump off what you said about Notre Dame never playing here. The Notre Dame's playing Army, and it's going to be at Yankee Stadium this year. And we get it. We get it with Notre Dame. But Army Navy doesn't even play in their own stadium. And I know that some of this is blasphemous talk, and I don't really care, okay? Army has played Navy twice at Mikey Stadium, never here. One was 1943 during World War II, and one was during COVID. And so when we talk about not having rivalries and not having, in this conference, we got Army and Navy together. And
arguably the best rivalry in the history of the sport.
Thank you. And they're not going to play in either of their stadiums. And what are they going to get at home? Navy's going to get North Texas, and they're going to get Tulane, and they're going to get all this stuff. And so I've never been to Army Navy. And do I want to go? Yes. But it's been in Lincoln Financial Field the last couple of years. I've already been to a Temple game, and it just doesn't do. It also falls on the weekend of the the FCS semifinals usually. But that being said, when we talk about atmospheres and we talk about crowd dynamic, just think about Army coming in to this stadium with some of their fans. You would you see the games where the crowd are yelling back and forth at each other. You would never see so much pride from a fan base than those two people going at each other. So I get it, right? If you go to the link and it's 70,000 people, you make more money. I get it. But look, that's all the midshipmen right there. It's all white. And when we looked at the Army and we saw the cadets there, they were in their uniforms. Imagine the overhead view of a stadium where half the home side is packed out in white. The other one is packed out as the cadets. Let people line up on the grass, overfill this thing, do it, whatever. So just what you mentioned about Notre Dame never playing here, I get that. And I get that there's more money in the Army Navy at a neutral site. But when Army joined this conference, that's the first thing that came to mind is we're never going to get Army Navy on campus. And to me, that's disappointing.
It is. That very much so is. I know it's at FedEx this year. I might even go to it, but it sounds crazy. I'm curious about the Newberry thing. If it doesn't work this year, they might pull the plug on him over the next, 12 months. Bill Belichick grew up. Bill Belichick's what, 71 years old, probably 70, something like that. I don't know. Bill Belichick's dad coached at Navy. He takes a lot of pride in Navy football. He's made that known. I can't help but think his son is like a defensive coordinator. I think the defensive linebackers coach of Washington. Could you imagine if they got the Belichicks to coach Navy next year or the year? Like, that would just put college football all. I know I'm getting way ahead of myself, but I love this stadium. I love the tradition. Army, Navy, Air Force are college football. I don't even know that I can suggest a team more than Army and Navy for the history of college football and what to me would, if I had to tell aliens about college football, that'd probably be one of the first examples that I would do. Yeah,
I've got to say this stadium has improved a ton. If you go back and look at older photos, I've done the progression tweets. It looks nothing like it. I mean, there was a major renovation in 2005. You mentioned the checkered end zones. Everything is closer. It's upgraded. They have names of famous battles all over the inside of the stadium. You mentioned Roger Staubach. They got, plaques and up on display for all Americans. So on the left, you got the mascot statue there. That's in one end zone. And then on the right, that's a plaque to Iwo Jima. But they got, all the battles displayed everywhere. And it's like a upgraded Mikey, just not on the water. And so I went there for the Military Bowl, and that's actually where the clip that we play for me at the game was. This is the spot I was standing when I was getting rained on. And Tulane and Virginia Tech, they packed that place out. It holds 38,000. It was a gigantic crowd despite the rain. So I love this stadium, not just for what it is, but what it's transformed into.
Hell yeah, folks. Yeah, and look, folks, I see 870 people watching this now. Please hit that like and subscribe button. YouTube.com/@Stadium Heads SGPN. Also, wherever you get your podcast at, iTunes, Spotify, wherever, Stitcher, type in Stadium Heads. We need you to subscribe to that because we know we're putting this out on like 10 feeds, but we're gonna eventually break off to one feed, and you're gonna wonder, hey, what happened to that cool stadium, college football stadium podcast? So do that, folks. It helps us too if you can. I'll also hop over to iTunes, give us a 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube right now, if you're one of the 870 people watching, stay put. We're not going anywhere. But if you're on the audio side, make sure you check out the B-side where we talk about the rest of the American Athletic Conference and all the other teams that have been, either brand new to the conference, somewhat 1 year old, or been a long stay in this conference. So check out the Stadium Heads. Make sure to give Michael a follow on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour. I'm on Twitter at @TheColbyD. So check out that, and stay put on the Stadium Heads podcast. All right, we are back on the Stadium Heads podcast, and we just tackled A through N, NA, that is Navy, because next up is North Texas. I'm here with the most interesting man in college football, Michael Barker, aka College Football Campus Tour. Give him a follow on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour. North Texas, the Mean Green. Hayden Fry coached here for a long time. All right, you want history? They got history. All right. North Texas, Denton, Texas. I didn't know what to name the stadium because it changed a couple times. It's 13 years old, but this is another one. And I think when I talked about the recent stadiums like Charlotte and UAB and FAU, I think I forgot to mention North Texas and Tulane also, I should give credit to, because they do have a new stadium, but there's nothing wrong with a new stadium. A lot of people think, oh, we only like the old stadiums. We like the new stadiums. Tell me about your travels to Denton, because the stadium looks beautiful, man.
Yeah, so I've been to 2 games there. Went in 2018. They played a Thursday night game against FAU when Lane Kiffin was the coach, and I believe Mason Fine was the quarterback for North Texas. That was a shootout. It was a great game. And then in the COVID year, I went, and it was the season finale. They played against UTEP. So 2 games there. The stadium was built in 2011, 30,000 seats. It replaced Fouts Field from 1952 to 2010. It's upgraded. It's very nice. And one of the most distinct features that has is the end zone bleachers. It's a V-shaped stands, and they call it the tip of eagle wings. And that thing is tall. And I don't know if we got any photos from the backside of it, but it's very distinct. And, this is only a 12, 13-year-old stadium, and I think they did a fantastic job. Right there, you can see the wings, and I will tell you, when you walk up to that very top corner of those seats, it's kind of scary up there. So, but and that's the other angle there. So, but I think they did a phenomenal job on this. You can easily navigate the stadium. The green colors pop. There's good views. There's a walking bridge if you want to park across the street. So I think it's an upgrade, obviously.
Is it on the same exact ground as the previous stadium, or did they move it?
It's in a different spot.
Okay. It's still phenomenal though. Like,
yeah,
it just has a great clean look to it.
It's not cookie cutter, right? It's not cookie cutter.
It's got personality. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you talk about criticizing new stadiums, well, what do we criticize it for? There's no creativity. It looks like everything else. You skimped on it. What? There's a legit looking press box over there. There's, the distinct eagle wings. Like, who has a stadium that is actually a part of their mascot, like made a feature like that? There's a Mean Green, Joe Green statue out there. And, you talked about the stadium name. It was temporarily, the original name was going to be Mean Green Stadium, which I think is an incredible name. They ended up going with Apogee, and then within the last year or two, they changed it to DATQ, which is the Dallas Area Teachers Credit Union. But I like it. And, football is crazy in Texas. Denton's only about 35 miles north of the Dallas Love Airport, so it's easily accessible as well.
Yeah, and Cannabis Capper's asking, what's the scariest seat you ever sat in?
This one. If you look at if you go back, like, look at that view right there. And so you got
I'm sorry. Yeah.
That right there. So that's for the very top corner. And there's a rail on the left, and there's a little small staircase. So I try to push it. I try to get to the top. This one is scary just because it comes to a point. Like, there's other stadiums, you go to the top and it's high, but you're along a row and there's maybe a back wall. This, I can't imagine a sellout and somebody sitting there the whole game. But I wanted to make a point and go up there, and it's a great photo. And next time I get a chance to go out there, I hope it's with a big crowd and we can get this same photo with a packed out stadium.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I mean, though. It's like there's a lot of new stadiums that are great. All right, this is one that I thought they did great. We talked about Baylor, not that far away, right, in the great state of Texas.
Alabama.
Yeah, South Alabama. All right, there's a lot of new stadiums that we like. Charlotte's. We thought Charlotte's was a good building block.
UAB coming
FAU.
up.
Yeah, UAB.
Yep.
Let's talk about an old stadium, though. One that's famous. JFK gave a speech here about 24 hours before he got assassinated. And one of the best parts about that speech, which I would love to show TV execs that are destroying college football to a certain extent, is one of the parts of that speech, which tackled a lot of topics, as you can imagine, in 1963 in America. But he talks about, why does Rice play Texas? Right? He's basically saying that's why it's part of the American fabric. It's what should be, right? It should happen. It's a game between two longstanding rivals, one small private school and one gigantic school, but it should happen. I love that part of the speech because of that, because he understood the fabric of college football to me. And yeah, I mean, you look at the stadium, this is a historic stadium. Now I know, and I don't know that I've seen any renditions of I know I sent you, I think I texted you over the past year, some type of thing they plan to upgrade the stadium. I don't know that I've ever seen any renditions. Have you? But this is they hosted the Super Bowl. One of two Super Bowls, was it, or one? I'm not sure. But tell me about your travels down here to Houston, Texas.
So they hosted Super Bowl 8 back in the day. This at one point it had somewhere around 70,000 seats. They're tarping off a lot. It's back in the day in the 60s, Rice had a very competitive program and they were playing the Texases and they were able to fill this. Right now, they're not able to fill this. And, that's why you got the tarps out. But the JFK speech, Super Bowl 8, we got no other stadium. It reminds me of what old Tulane Stadium was, that Tulane ended up going to the Superdome. And now they have on campus with Yulman, which is a much more appropriate size for what Tulane football is. But I have heard rumblings about them talking about a new stadium. They would probably just knock this one down and put something there. we love the history, but if you're going to have a stadium that is not suitable for your program needs, you may have to look at something. A good example is San Diego State. When the Chargers left and went to LA, that's a 70,000 seat stadium for a G5 school. And they ended up knocking it down, playing 2 years in Carson, California, and came back to a 35,000 seat stadium that is more suited for them. So, are they making the best of it? Yes. I believe they had a UFL team playing there. So it's there's more than one tenant, but it is a huge stadium for a G5 program, no doubt.
Well, their enrollment is one of the lowest. I don't know that I single digits, I believe. I think it's like Wake Forest, I think something similar to that. I'm going to quickly try to Google it right now to let people know. I don't want to see it knocked down just because this is 8,000 people. That's their school, 8,000 people. It's a very good academic school. All you got to do is win to me, and team, people in Houston will come out and watch college football. It's in Texas. I just would hate to see. Maybe you can downsize it while keeping the same stadium. I like the fact that Larry Zonka played here. I like the fact Tommy Kramer, the old Vikings quarterback, went to Rice. Bert Emanuel ran the triple option here at Rice. There's just a lot of history to it. And countless times the Texas Longhorns or other teams came in here. I would like for them to I update it, but yet stay classic with it. I don't want them to detonate it. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. I'm with you. And I guess when you hear rumblings about getting a new stadium, they have to look at reasons why that would be. And one of the reasons is because they're not filling it up. And so what do you do? If you can't fill it up, then you're looking at alternatives. We talked about Memphis, what they're trying to do to position themselves for possibly a power conference invite while they're upgrading an older stadium. This is in the same category. And so do you have to detonate it? No, you don't have to detonate it. But if you're going to be attractive to recruits, if you're going to be attractive to conference mates, potentially for realignment, because they're in Houston, and Houston is a giant city. Obviously, if they were successful on the field, which they have been at certain points, they could accomplish a lot as well. And so we want, from my perspective, you want the best for the program, and that's why these ideas are being thrown out. But no, we're not. I don't want to have it be said that we're looking for the wrecking ball to come for this place. Not at all.
Yeah. This shot right here is what I love. That makes me think of Rudy when he's running. That scene in Rudy where he's at, I think he's at Holy Cross, but he's working at the stadium.
Yeah.
And he's every night he's getting his, he's trying to check his mail to see if he got into Notre Dame. In the meantime, he's running the track underneath here. Please don't get rid of that. You know what I mean? I like that element to it, but look, I understand that you got to do what you got to do, but I like the Rice. I like it more than I think. I didn't rank this. We have the top 5 at the end. I didn't rank this, but I like it. I just hope that they can upgrade it some, like the Liberty Bowl, like you said. Like we saw the
and they have. I mean that complex in the end zone. I believe that's like their athletic center. So they did that. They put tarps in certain places just to kind of condense it. But they're the whole turf that's new as well. When you look at the facade of the press box there, it says Rice University. So there are some touches on it. I think that you can't help looking around. And, Houston built a brand new stadium. Baylor built a brand new stadium. North Texas built a stadium, so there's a lot of teams in Texas. I'm sure you've seen on Twitter, some of the high school stadiums in Texas, they're crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think you just have alums and you have people who know the academic prestige of the university, and they have conversations. Now there's a middle ground between those two, and winning cures all, but that's kind of the reason that those conversations exist.
Yeah, fair. Folks, look, I want to tell you before we jump to the next school that the Stadium Heads college football stadiums for the AAC episode is brought to you by we're part of the Sports Gambling Podcast and part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and our latest episode of SGP Stories is out on Patreon, and the guys do a Forensic Files style deep dive on the Bobby Petrino motorcycle accident that cost him his job. I'm on the episode too. So I'm actually, as a matter of fact, I'm actually I might be wearing a neck brace with an Arkansas jacket and hat on. So check it out. Plus, make sure to check out the WNBA gambling podcast as Terrell and Scott have started out red hot with their locks. So check it out. And remember, as always, folks, to let it ride. All right. Now we talk about a team that I wish I never did a deep dive on them in a way, because I was doing a deep dive on them. And I know they have more good pros than people think, whether it's Muhammad Wilkerson, whether it's Todd Bowles, who played safety for them back in the day under Bruce Arians, who coached there. That's what I'm saying. They have a rich history. And you can go further back, Paul Palmer and other guys that came through, Robbie Anderson recently, PJ Walker, but they had their own stadium. And I think I might have had a few cocktails and sent you, and you already knew about it, of course, College Football Campus Tour, but I was like, how do they let this thing slide away? They play at the Eagle Stadium, Lincoln Financial now, which is 21 years old, seats just about 70,000, 69,879. I want to say something positive. I like the end zones. All right. It's outdoors, but I can't help but think if they used an MLS stadium, which I don't normally like football teams to play at MLS stadiums, but I think in certain cases it could spawn A plus B equals C, if you catch what I'm throwing out. If they played at the MLS stadium that seats, I looked this up, it's something like 17,000 or something. I think they could actually draw a decent number. And I think that would sell on TV. I think it would sell to recruits some. And I think it might even create an energy within the city. It's almost like the club experience. I live here in Los Angeles, California. You go out to a club, sometimes you see a line outside the club. You get inside, there's 3 people there, right? But if you make it look packed, you want to be a part of that party, right? My point is if they played at an MLS stadium, I think that might actually create a buzz about how it's exciting to be a Temple Owl. And hey, what are you doing? We should go to the Temple game. Instead, I think this is lazy of them. It makes me think that they don't care about their football program, which is unfortunate because they do have a rich history. Like as far as historic, they've been playing football a long time. They've had big time names come in there at certain points of their careers. So it's unfortunate. Tell me about your travels to Philadelphia and the link.
Man, so I'm angry about this one. So just to get onto the travels, I went there to a game 2021. It was a Saturday game. It was I was in my pursuit of the 130, all of them, and this was probably like 126, 127. So it was a game against UCF, and they got beat, and there was a small crowd. They have a Thursday night game, September 26th. I believe it's against Army. It's the only football game that day. So if there's no other game on that day, then I'm going to be there. But you talked about the deep dive that you went into. Their decisions have repercussions. And we've talked about this before when we talked about Pitt and Pitt Stadium, when we talked about Miami, and we talked about the Orange Bowl. You know, Temple Stadium, they played there from 1928 to 1977, had 34,000 seat capacity. And when the Philadelphia Eagles built Veterans Stadium in 1978, they're looking for a co-tenant. And so you make it attractive, and here comes Temple, and then Veterans Stadium outlives its, usefulness, and then you build Lincoln Financial Field and you bring them with them. It doesn't serve the needs of Temple University football. Really, it's the same thing that UNLV is doing at Allegiant and all these other ones. And so they're in stadium purgatory. And part of the reason we talk about wanting good things for people is because they're stuck. If you Google new Temple football stadium, there's renderings of a new stadium. There's lots of land that are picked out. But because Philadelphia is such a high density place, there has to be, eminent domain and agreements with neighbors. And so the stadium height is under dispute and all these things. So they really just can't get things going. And this is where you end up. You end up as a tenant in an NFL stadium. And no matter what you do, using your analogy, there's no line outside. And so, what's the potential for Temple football? We honestly don't know. We've seen spurts, Matt Rule, but other than that, this is typically what you get. And, for us stadium heads, and we look at someone like App State, great stadium, fill it out, people come, there's pride. This is the exact opposite. So all I think is give these guys the proper accommodations, win, and they'll be a suitable, happy program and happy fans. And they just don't have that path right now. And it's very frustrating from the outside to watch.
Yes. And we could do an hour on this because, first off, shout out to the 930 people watching this. Hit that like and subscribe button, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. But no, look, here's what's mind boggling to me. Like my buddy Sean Stack in the Money Green, hosts Sports Gambling Podcast, comedian friend of mine I've known for years. And he said, yeah, I'm an NFL guy more than college because, we didn't have college football. I'm like, well, you did. You didn't care. And you didn't have a seat at the table in a way. Now, it's a mind fuck for me because the Northeast started college football. The first game ever played was in New Jersey, which is right next to Philadelphia. It's like, how did that happen? How did that area sell out on it? It's because of some of these decisions that you talked about. And to me, now that there's a seat at the table, let alone from, and I don't want to beat a dead horse on the 12-team playoff thing, but I also believe they just need one person to fix this. I don't think it's you don't need a big operation on this. One person needs to sit there and convince he needs to be employed by the University of Temple, but needs to convince the other people that this thing can work at a smaller stadium. I honestly believe if they started at an MLS stadium, which ironically, this is 20 minutes from their university. The Lincoln Financial Stadium is 20 minutes from the university. The MLS stadium, 17 minutes. I looked this up. And so it's closer. Not that it really matters, but I believe you can start something like this. Like, I believe that if you played at an MLS, if you just took that, whatever, okay, it's a soccer stadium, just own it. I think you would actually create a little bit of a buzz. Now, obviously, you need to have a somewhat of a winning culture. You don't even need to be going 10-2. I think if a smaller though leads to more, like it becomes an intimate experience. Like how many times, like as a guy that's done stand up a few thousand times in my life, sometimes when I host a show, you don't want, if you booked me at Madison Square Garden, it'd be fucking horrible because 6 people would show up. Right now, if you booked me at an intimate bar, I remember doing one in San Francisco at this downstairs place that probably the whole place probably packed. It was packed, but it was probably 24 people. Right. It was one of the best experiences. One of my favorite shows that I've done in my life. It's all about knowing who you are. This is ridiculous to me. Maybe down the road, you know what I mean? Maybe if you build it up, but to just keep taking an L year after year on this is the definition of insanity to me. Anyway,
well, I will tell you that I don't know enough about the new stadium efforts. I know that they have tried hard, and I know there are roadblocks with neighbors and noise and stadium height, but it's not like they're not trying. And for us, what you're talking about with the example of the smaller, more intimate atmosphere, make it something grow, like that's what they want to do. And, in places that are less populated, less dense, you can find alternate sites. A place like Philadelphia, a place like Pittsburgh, a place like Miami is hard to come by real estate. So for them to identify a spot either on campus or not far, have renderings, had conversations, and not be able to get over that hump is very frustrating. And, let's throw in Hawaii. Hawaii had Aloha Stadium, and now they're going potentially 9 years without a stadium. You know, they turned a track stadium into an on-campus stadium, and it's just not suitable for them. So these things, what's the original sin in 1978? Going and being co-tenants at Veterans Stadium. Well, you know, we can't go back and change that, but damn near 50 years has gone by. So you and I are voicing frustrations is because we want better for them. And, you know, we don't like NFL stadiums. That's why we're college football stadium heads. But long story short is we want them to have a positive future. And it's hard to see it when you have a stadium that they don't even open the upper deck. And this crowd right here is a regular season crowd. I mean, how bring recruits there, get your top 20 recruits there to come. Who wants to play in front of that environment? So
well, and that's what kills me.
Well, last thing was, I feel like what I want to do is try to put this more on my feed and Twitter about, you know, the new stadium issue. And maybe we can be part of the solution here to try to help, you know, educate people. And maybe there's something to be done. I know it's, you know, a very small thing, but they need help. And hopefully we can do that.
And I would argue that the whole Northeast does. And I think a lot of it doesn't make sense to me because it's the birthplace of college football. And I know people say, well, it's a pro sports town. That's not true. I watch Villanova basketball games. All right. Madison Square Garden might be more famous for the Big East tournament than the New York Knicks. All right. UConn has won national championship after national championship. They pack the place. Providence, the Friars, have one of the best fan bases in college basketball. I can go on. St. John's has a good crowd. You know what I mean? Especially when they got it going, like Rick Pitino did last year, and probably can continue to do. The Vermont Catamounts, who don't even have a fucking football program. Great basketball fan base, right? So I refuse to accept this thing of, well, the Northeast isn't college football. I watched a game in the 80s at Boston College where the crowd was packed, in the early 90s also. The blueprint's there. And now some of it I do believe was seat at the table, but we've seen all these programs diminish, whether it's Northeastern or Boston or St. John's, Siena, Fairfield. They all had football programs. They're all gone, right? It bothers me. And I refuse to believe that you're telling me that they only like the NFL. They don't like college. From my experiences, most people that like football. You know what I mean? Now, some may like pro more than college. Some might like college more than pro. But normally, they don't tell me, well, I wouldn't watch the game because it was college or pro. I refuse to believe that. And I think you just got to give in. You got to try to help yourself. And I think long term, especially with this looming 12-team playoff, I think that can change the way the sport could be. And don't get me started on Vermont. Anyway, let's move to the next team here. But before I do that, I want to tell you folks out there that the college, I keep saying the college football experience because I'm doing team previews. Check out the college football experience as I do 134 team previews for every single team in the land. It's a bit robotic now. My apologies. The Stadium Heads podcast for the AAC is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Pick 8 is now live. Create entries with up to 8 picks, and Underdog Fantasy will automatically double flex entries so you can miss up to 2 picks and still win your entry with more picks to make and extra ways to win. The excitement is higher than ever. And the best part is you can win up to 325 times the amount that you originally enter. And you can now use specials on boost and all flexed entries. So don't miss your chance to try it out before it's gone. Sign up, and when you do, sign up with the promo code TCESGPN. Yes, they have college football. They have college basketball. Currently I'm playing CFL and MLB and UFC. So check it out. Just because it's summertime, you still got options. All right. But use that promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. We're also brought to you by Circa Survivor and Circa Millions. Yes, Circa Sports is back with Circa Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. Of course, Circa contests have no rake. Circa Millions, you pick 5 NFL teams ATS each week and compete for $6 million, or you can survive the NFL gauntlet to claim the $10 million prize. Sign up in person at Circa Sports between now and September 7th and use a proxy. You can play from anywhere. As a matter of fact, we have a deal with footballcontestproxy.com to save you $50 with the promo code SGP. So check that out. If you don't have a trip planned for Las Vegas yet before football season, may I recommend the Ultimate Contest Weekend. It's a great time to go out, hang out with Ryan and Sean from the Sports Gambling Podcast. Enjoy some of the open bar events there at the greatest sports book in the world, August 22nd to August 24th over at Circa. All right. We are back, and shout out to Brandon Shirkin there. Michael and Colby, you guys are the best in the business. Thanks for making this podcast. Well, thanks for checking it out, man. And I feel like on a lot of other shows, shout out to David Matola as well, who's talking about the fucking Long Island Shocks. But on a lot of other podcasts, I feel like, and maybe this is arrogant of me, but sometimes I feel like I am the talent. My buddies that I do the college football show with, they don't have a background in comedy. So I try to push that. But in this one, it's interesting for me. It's fun for me because Michael in my mind, he is the talent. He's the guy going to all these stadiums, taking these photos, traveling to all these places, sleeping in cars in Brookings, South Dakota, or wherever, caught in a rainstorm, caught in a tornado. You know what I mean? Like there's just whatever. I feel like he lives this life that needs to be broadcast and needs to be explained. It needs to be, and he knows the key to me. Like when I first met Michael, I thought it was fantastic that we both loved the Sun Bowl. We both loved the Liberty Bowl, and just certain things. It was like, oh man, it was like we're good friends. We don't know it yet, but we're good friends. But anyway, Michael to me is the gasoline that makes the engine work on this show. Give him a follow on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour, because once the season gets going, you're going to want to watch his travels, and maybe if you're a college football fan, you'll invite him to come to your stadium, and maybe you guys can meet up. But yeah, I don't know. Yeoman Stadium though. Let's jump into this.
You're the first person I called, man. Remember, I called you and I said I want to do this show, and you're the person I called. So, don't sell yourself short. Obviously, you got the keys to driving this thing, and it's been fun so far. So we got to keep it going.
There you go. And I sell myself short in a lot of areas, but I have college football knowledge. But I'm telling you, man, you're the most interesting man in college football. But anyway, look. We'll talk more about on episode 500. We'll talk more about that, but we're very grateful, Brandon, and we're very grateful to the 967 people that are checking us out live right now on YouTube, youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. Tulane, Yeoman Stadium. This is one, I feel like if you go through the history of the Super Bowl, you'll see a lot of games at Tulane Stadium, right? Or bowl games. The original Sugar Bowl, I believe, was Tulane Stadium. Now that stadium's gone, but I thought Tulane. When I remember Tulane football as a kid growing up in the 90s, they played at the Superdome. They had in 98, Tommy Bowden went undefeated there, and they should have had a seat. This was back in the day when I started arguing, why don't they have a shot why did they not claim a national championship? They had Sean King, of his former, a guy that took the Tampa Bay Bucks to the NFC Championship multiple years as their starting quarterback, and they had a slew of other players. Todd Pinkston was a wide receiver that played for the Eagles. And it drove me crazy. They were playing in the Superdome. They went undefeated in 98. Rich Rodriguez was their offensive coordinator. And I still mad that they didn't have a chance. But then they built their new stadium, Yeoman Stadium. They have their own stadium that they can call theirs, 10 years old, 34,500. And let me tell you, I've been in New Orleans plenty of times. This is on my list because I kind of love from the logos that they brought back, all these retro logos, to the colors. It just seems fun. Tell me about your experiences down there at Yeoman Stadium.
So I've been to 3 games at Yeoman. I want to say 2018 versus Navy. There was another one it was that Houston weeknight game, 2019, where they scored on the last play and won that game. And then most of these photos are from the 2022 AAC championship against UCF. And, this is perfect that, we just talked about Temple. And now we're talking about Tulane. And Temple started playing at Veterans Stadium, and then they moved to the Link. Well, Tulane played at the Superdome, as you mentioned, and then they got their own stadium. And they hosted the 2022 AAC championship. They won it. They went and beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. And they last year were one of the top teams. A lot of people thought they should have got in the playoff or in the the New Year's Six bid ahead of Liberty, even though they had losses. And so, they won the game. They rushed the field that I went to. But this is what is, we could beat a dead horse, but two programs, both playing in NFL stadiums, one continued on that path, one built an on-campus stadium, and look at the direction of Tulane and Temple, which way they've gone. And so this stadium is an accomplishment. New Orleans is not, got tons of real estate available. They were able to fit the stadium in there. There are some limitations as far as where you can build things and being height restrictions for neighbors, but it seats 30,000. It's expandable up to 10,000 more. So a 40,000 seat stadium in New Orleans with a winning program, they're making the best of it. And I'm very happy for what they've accomplished at Tulane.
And I want to highlight that, like, we love the big house. Michigan does college football right, but you don't need to be the biggest stadium to be awesome, to be one of the best. Folsom Field doesn't, I don't think it's that, was it 50? Something right around there, give or take?
How about
I put that
Stadium's 54,000?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't need to be, to me, just, you got to be right. You know what I mean? It doesn't, like, the biggest isn't always the best. You know what I mean? You like the Golden Corral is not the best meal just because they offer every food. You know what I mean? I love it. I love this thing, and I'm really excited about the future. And I dig the fact that they built this thing. I'm so like I feel like a dad at the ballpark with the son. I'm proud of him. Right? I'm just like, oh yeah, let's go, let's go.
It's a huge accomplishment what they did. To get it back on campus for the first time. So. That you mentioned the Angry Wave and bringing back the old logos. That right there it's a 2,400 pound statue of Angry Wave.
Great shot, man. It's perfect.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it. So they have made all the right moves at Tulane.
College football and just football in general is supposed to be fun. Yep. I talked about FAU having the palm tree on their helmet. I like that move. It makes it campy. It makes it cool. It makes it unique. I always thought the Houston Oilers had that advantage back in the day. Football is supposed to be about fun. I love them owning this logo that, I guarantee you if I showed this to a 5-year-old, they would think they're like, it's supposed to be, football's supposed to be mean and jack. No, not everything. It can be fun. It can be unique. And I think that's what exactly that logo. I'm so glad they're owning into that, because before they had the T with like a part of a wave on the T. It wasn't horrible, but this is amazing. This is amazing. And same with like the Western Kentucky mascot,
Big Red.
Yeah, Big Red. Exactly. And obstructed view alert, youtube.com/ at Stadium Heads SGPN. What's up here?
So apparently, when I was talking about there's some limitations on how they built the stadium, I guess this was part of maneuvering around to make it work. But, a couple of years ago, the play-by-play basketball announcer for Tulane put out a tweet, and it said, like, it was at a basketball arena. It said, worst seat in the house or something. And somebody tagged me, and I said, I wonder where I got that idea from. And the guy responds, and he says, who are you? And I've been doing this since last year. And then I'm not one to get in Twitter beefs, but I said, well, I got 10 times the amount of followers from you, and I've been doing this since 2018. And when I didn't know who he was and I researched it, I was like, you got obstructed views in your own football stadium and you're calling out other people? That doesn't seem like the right thing to do. But I wanted to be able to showcase this. And before the game, I had a student take a photo, and you can see about 40% of the field, and that's an obstructed view.
There we go. And look, that guy, when we saw Michael was tweeting him, he and said, "Hey, I've been doing this since 2018. Check out my travels."
Well,
that was his response.
They bring the head cold, but they're
yeah. I mean, this is I love what they're doing though. The stadium, it looks cool. Love the blue end zones, by the way. It's perfect. Yep. It's perfect.
That's great.
And what am I looking at here, by the way, as far as the big heads here?
So I don't know. We rushed the field after the game and ran on the field, and those could be players. They could be frat guys. I have no idea, but
part of the mystery.
Yeah, no, I remember there was a sign at that game, and it was a sign, and it had a roll of toilet paper attached to it, and it had UCF diploma with an arrow, so there was all kinds of all the stops were being pulled out for this game. It's probably maybe the biggest game in Tulane history, to be honest with you. So, yeah, if you are those people, please identify yourself for us. That would help out a lot.
Yeah, please, if you can, at CFB Campus Tour and at the Colby D. Another shot from you with the obstructed view. Hilarious, absolutely hilarious. It almost looks like a like it's a spot where they store something. You know what I mean? Like garbage or something. I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, behind there is the dumpster door. Yeah, it kind of makes it look like that.
Absolutely hilarious. All right, look, folks, before we get to our next team, I want to tell you that the college, the AAC college stadiums that we're breaking down on the Stadium Heads podcast is brought to you by Rhythm. If you're betting on player props, you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm is the go-to sports betting tool that transforms complex data into actionable insights, empowering bettors with smarter, data-driven decisions. Unlike other platforms, Rhythms combines advanced predictive analytics with an intuitive user experience, making betting both easy and enjoyable. Rhythms predictive models were born from the brains of MIT data scientists and quants with over 3 years of data that help drive you to better AI-backed betting decisions. So claim your free 7-day trial period today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. All right, it is time to talk about H.A. Chapman Stadium. They got to go back to this old logo. Tulane was smart enough to go back, because how the hell do you really show a hurricane anyway? Well, this is a pretty damn good example. It's like Superman meets a hurricane. The current Tulsa logo looks almost like a flag in the wind. This is way better. They got to go back to this. They need to own this. H.A. Chapman Stadium. I have a soft spot in my heart for the stadium. Part of it is the history. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State used to always have to play. Actually, Oklahoma State has to play there this year. But for years, even you go back and look at like some of the best Bud Wilkinson coached Oklahoma teams. They played a game at H.A. Chapman. Steve Largent, H.A. Chapman, he's Tulsa grad. You can go on and on. Gus Frerotte, all this other stuff. But because of that history, also the Doug Williams and the Oklahoma Outlaws in the original USFL played here. The crowd, I don't understand this one. I know Tulsa, in a way, it's kind of like the Rust Belt. Like I was in Dayton, Ohio, went to a Dayton Flyers basketball game, but I was just going around checking out Dayton, Ohio, and talking to some of the, I like to go to like the oldest bars, oldest restaurants in each town that I go to. And I was talking to a guy who was like 85 years old. And he was saying that, like their population has just, at one point, Dayton was, it's like a third of what it used to be population wise. Tulsa is similar, I believe. I haven't done as deep as a dive on it, but Tulsa is similar. But the reason why I bring that up is recently I was watching a game. Iowa, Hayden Fry was playing at Tulsa. All right. Back in the 90s, Iowa at Tulsa, and Iowa lost, believe it or not. So even that is cool to think of the history that's coming through the stadium, but also the place was fucking packed. And I can't help but think the last 5-10 times I've seen Tulsa on TV, place has been kind of empty, man. And I don't understand it, because one of those years they went to the AAC championship game and it still wasn't packed. I think maybe it's the fact it's Sooners and Cowboys, but I also still think like it's got to be part of the fact that Tulsa isn't as big of a city as it used to be. Maybe. What's your opinion? And tell me about your travels to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
So I don't know the answer to that. I know that, for the times that I've traveled, they haven't been in playoff pictures or the race for the conference championship. But I love the stadium. It went, so 30,000 it holds now. At one point, it held 47,000. You talked about Oklahoma coming in. 1987, they were the number one ranked team. That's the record that they ever had, 47,350 In 2007, they did a major renovation, did the exterior facade, looks really good. They reduced capacity to 30,000. I've been on campus just for visits, like this photo right here. All the games I've been to on weeknights, and in the perfect world, you're going to get a chance to go see every FBS school on a Saturday, on homecoming or their rival, but it just doesn't work out like that. There's 232 Division I schools, and we got 13 Saturdays per year, so you just can't do it all. But I like the stadium. I think it is set up for big time football. I've seen a couple of exciting games there. 2020, they played Tulane. The final play of regulation, Tulsa caught a Hail Mary, forced it to overtime, and then in double overtime, Zaven Collins, who was the player of the year in college football, Arizona Cardinals first-round draft pick, took a pick six, 90 yards to win it. It was a crazy game, but you mentioned in the beginning too how cold it was. That game from 2 years ago was freezing. So I don't know the answer. I like the stadium. I think that Oklahoma has great football fans, and maybe it's just winning consistently. Maybe that's just the missing element.
I would love for them to be, and maybe you're right. Tulsa basketball, Bill Self had a run to the Elite Eight in, I don't know, late 90s, but they had some really good years in the 90s, and maybe that had something to do with it. But now that there's a ticket to the 12 team, who knows? I mean, I think I just love the fact that this stadium has that much history. I think it looks cool, and I almost think, though, in a way, that they might fit better in the Mountain West than the AAC. I know that Oklahoma isn't really, in the mountains, but they're playing like Florida schools and stuff. I almost wonder if who gives a does your average Oklahoma fan care about, playing South Florida or ECU or something? I feel like, yes, there's UTSA in there, North Texas, and Oklahoma and Texas have that rivalry. So, I mean, maybe there is that element to it, but I almost think also that maybe you would have that with Colorado and maybe some of the other schools, Utah and stuff like that. I don't know, but I tend to think that might be some of it. To bring up the West Virginia conversation again, when you start, West Virginia used to have the best fans in the. I still think they have the best fans, like some of the best fans in the world, but they've had problems packing their stadium when Baylor comes to town, because they don't have built up animosity towards Baylor. When it was Syracuse before, they've been playing for 100 years. You know what I mean? When it was Pitt before, they any Pitt game they'll show up for. But I can't help but think that might have something to do with some of this stuff. But maybe a 12-team playoff or a 24-team playoff will change it. What's that?
Yeah. I mean, winning cures all, obviously, and it's the same thing applies to ECU. I will tell you, November 14th is Tulsa is playing a home game, and Alabama A&M is playing a home game, and I've been to both before. So it's the toss-up, and I'm trying to, whatever the better experience is, that's one I go back to. But that's TBD right now.
Folks, that schedule we're going to key in on as the season, it gets closer to season, and obviously every single week we're going to check in with Michael here. Obstructed view alert, a little bit. What's the percentage on this one?
So there's another angle where it's more of the wall you could see, but this one is I don't know if I might not have sent it to you, but this is what happens when you build a little outdoor suite and you block it, intrudes on some of the bleachers. So percentage wise, it's probably still about 30 or 40, but those people in the suites right there, they're not expecting a guy to sit right up there and kind of listen in on their party. So I had to vamoose after I took that photo.
Yeah, and this is cool too. Talk about this.
So it's a mini replica of H.A. Chapman Stadium. It's right behind the home side bleachers. It's got turf. It's got lights. It's got, yardage markers. It's got end zones. It's got place to sit. It's got the game on. And so I put this on social media a couple times, and I said that I think everyone should do it. And now space permitting is not going to be the same. But, when last week we were talking about Sunbelt stadiums, we were talking about Paulson, and you were saying, hey, if I went to a game with my kid, man, I'd love to sit on that hill and take a break. Well, this is something that kids can go, because this is during the game. I took the photo during the game. Nobody's over there. This is a place where kids can run and emulate their favorite players on a mini field that has all the logos for Tulsa. So I hope that in the same way that we talked about that upper deck suite at Charlotte, maybe people will duplicate this. That maybe there'll be other mini field versions behind stadiums in the future.
Yeah, no, I would dig that, especially as a kid, man. I remember dreaming. You know what I mean? You would sit there and pretend like you're Broadway Joe or something. You know what I mean? Yep. So that's really cool and unique, I would say. And I like, look, get yourself out to H.A. Chapman. It's a cool stadium. It's historic. And I like it. And they have that show Tulsa King. That's a hit. Maybe the city's gonna grow again. I know Danny Boy from House of Pain, who does he bought the Outsiders house there and fixed it up. If you're ever in Tulsa, I got a chance to check that out. Shout out to Danny Boy who hooked me up with that. That was really cool. If you love the movie The Outsiders and Rumblefish, it was filmed there. But yeah, I would love to get. They're like one of my favorite teams just because of that. You know what I mean? Just because it's Tulsa, they have this cool historic stadium. I'd love to see them come back up, man.
I agree.
Yeah. And next up we have this another one. Everyone says we talk shit. I do call it Penetrobe Stadium though. Shout out to Office Space. UAB Protective Stadium, Birmingham, Alabama. It's 3 years old. Seats 47,100. Trent Dilfer. Shout out to also our longtime listener. Welcome to UAB that I know digs this show. This is one though. They played at Legion Field forever in Alabama, and Auburn used to play Iron Bulls there too. This is a great stadium though, right?
Oh yeah. So I went to the grand opening in 2021. They played 4 straight road games, and then it opened in the beginning of October. They played Liberty. It was Malik Willis, and they did, when they signed the contract 7 years before that, they didn't expect Liberty to have Malik Willis and be great. But what a contrast between this and Legion Field. And we love Legion Field. Okay. UAB not only is it's such a success story because they killed the program and they brought it back and they survived at Legion Field and they were rewarded with this beautiful stadium. It's owned by Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center Authority. That's who owns it. But obviously UAB gets to play their home games there. You also have the Stallions of the UFL. They have a soccer team, Birmingham Legion FC plays there. But this is in downtown Birmingham. And, you talked about Tulsa as far as like the trends of the city. Birmingham is one of the fastest growing cities in America. And to have this beautiful ballpark down there, it's walkable. There's hotels all around, and 47,000 seats is huge for a G5. And, there was a Garth Brooks concert there when it opened. It got 50,000 people. So this is the reward for persevering, getting the stadium over the finish line. And, yes, it's used for 6 or 7 UAB home games per year, but it can do so much more, not just for the stadium itself, but for the city. So huge accomplishment, great place to watch football. And this photo right here, I know you say that every photo is from me. I took this photo from the airplane, and this is one of the best shots I ever got. Yeah, you could see the wing.
I was going to ask you. I made
it
it a point. Like, where the hell were you on top of a? I thought like you had finagled your way on top of a hotel and on the rooftop.
So I'm flying into Birmingham. It's the stadium opener. Nobody's allowed in yet. This is the first photo of it. And I just am looking out. I pop up my window after taking a nap. I'm like, that's the damn stadium right there. And I just shot it. And it's a pretty good pic from an airport window right there.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, man. Love it. And yeah, we love Legion Field, but we also can recognize that this place is great. And that's something that Temple should consider too, or whoever. Is it doesn't, yes, UAB for 6 or 7 games, and I think they might even host a bowl game there, but the Birmingham Bowl, I think it is. But you still have that for. That's why I don't understand the Temple thing. It's like you could still for concerts. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make. It's just I refuse to believe there's not a way.
You know what else is right? They got a Top Golf right next door too. So go to the game, tailgate, stumble over to Topgolf, have some fun. So yeah, the whole downtown Birmingham is there's a revitalization going on right now.
Yeah, the Birmingham Stallions are killing it in the UFL. I think, or the both. They have 3 straight championships.
Yep.
And then you got UAB, which, Trent Dilfer year 2. We'll see. It was kind of out of left field, but I'm intrigued to see what he can do. They had Bill Clark had this thing rolling before his health. He had some health issues, so he had to roll. He had to punt on coaching for a little bit. But yeah, this is a beautiful stadium, man.
And
how many times you been there?
I only have been there for the opener, this one.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say, shout out the logo. We shouted out Tulane the way, Blaze the Dragon. That's awesome. And there's a statue closer to campus where he's got, like a flame coming out, and I've taken a photo there. But yeah, I just been there for the grand opening 2021. Alabama is, football crazy, and there's a lot of schools there. It's a prime 2-for-1 candidate. So, if you're in Birmingham, you possibly can get down to Alabama State and Birmingham. Maybe you can get north to Alabama A&M. There's North Alabama. Of course, we got the big ones like Auburn and Alabama. So I'm looking for a spot to get back there. And what's interesting about these photos, I just want to say, is there are empty seats, but what was happening in this game, it was a brand new stadium and people wanted to walk around and check it out. And they had, like the Birmingham, there was a Dragon Dogs. I don't remember the name, but all the photos that I took, it looks like it's not filled out, but it was really people exploring the stadium that was the first time anyone in Birmingham got to enter. So, it could be a little bit deceiving, but I believe that it was close to a sellout for that very first game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's a great stadium. Next up, South Florida, and this gets the Temple treatment, but not anymore because they have announced that they. No, is there a hiccup? There's a hiccup.
No, I was not so fast, my friend. We're not giving them the Temple treatment. Yeah.
Yes. Tampa, Florida, Raymond James Stadium, 26 years old, which is obviously the home of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Seats 69,218. It's also a bowl game site. I forget what bowl game, but
Gasparilla.
Yeah, Gasparilla. There we go. Obviously, I have issues with it being red when you're the South Florida. It's green and gold. But
what about the pirate ship?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, they also have a pirate ship, and they're the Bulls, right?
Oh, pirate ship. I thought I think you broke up. You said partnership. I was like partnership.
No, pirate ship.
Yeah. Well, that was fitting for obviously Mike Leach. The last game his team played that year, he had already passed away, but was at the pirate ship, which I thought was so fitting. It was almost like a Hollywood ending to his his coaching career in a way. But South Florida is a team that let's talk about this here because Jim Leavitt had this program rolling. Yeah. I thought about this recently, and we talked about this on the College Football Experience podcast. Was if you had asked me in 2010 or 2006 or 2002, who is going to be the next power school, I would have not said Cincinnati. I would have probably not said Houston, although Houston was on a short list. I definitely wouldn't have said UCF. I thought it was South Florida because Leavitt had this thing rolling. I remember them winning at Auburn. They were top 10 in the nation. And after that, I don't know what happened. But, I mean, this is still 40 minutes from campus, if memory serves me correct. They announced they're getting a campus on stadium. A stadium on campus. I got this is my 6th hour on the microphone today. So excuse me. But anyway, tell me about your travels there and tell me about your thoughts on the stadium that we got coming.
So I've been there for 2 games. This is COVID year 2020. And then I went to the Gasparilla Bowl last year. UCF played in the game. So, in their stadium. The difference between the ones we're talking about with Temple is a long-standing program. South Florida is new, and the last one we have is UTSA, and they're also new. So, UCF is in the Big 12 now. They started their program in 1979. They started out in large stadiums that didn't belong to them. So, You mentioned that they had a ton of momentum in the famous 2007 year. I believe they were ranked number 2 at some point. It just didn't work out, but they fortunately have a new stadium. The plans are in place. It's supposed to open 2027. The renderings a little bit gives the UAB vibe, but it does have almost a North Texas kind of distinct end zone instead of the eagle wings with like some bull horns. But essentially the clock is ticking. So sustain the program while you're at Raymond James and open that thing up in 2027. They've gone through a few coaches. Hopefully the same coach will, be there for 2027, but they have a path forward and it's exciting and they earned it. They paid their dues at Raymond James for a few years and it's going to pay off. So, we mentioned at the last talking about UAB, I was at the stadium opener. If I'm fortunate enough to still be traveling in 2027, I hope to be at the grand opener of their on-campus stadium.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just, you're right. You're right. It's the opposite of Temple when to talk about longevity of a football program, but I am very excited for their future. I love when they announced they were getting it on campus. That's where college football should be played, guys, girls, whoever's listening to this. It should be played on campus. That's why they're so crazy to think that all these bowl games in the 12-team playoff after the first round are going to be better. The games on campus are going to be incredible to watch. And playing at NFL stadium, they had to do what they had to do. You know what I mean? And there's those NFL prices too, right? Double cocktail, only $26.50.
Like sneak in alcohol. That's my suggestion for this stadium because you're gonna go broke. My ticket was less than 1 beer. So we don't want NFL in college football.
You got to get the binocular flask. You know what I mean? That looks like it looks like binocular. Bring
in a pirate wooden leg with alcohol in it, right? Do that whole thing. So.
There we go. I'm excited for their future, man. And how many you've been here multiple times or just one or?
So 2020 COVID year versus Tulsa, that's there. And then last year for the Gasparilla Bowl. And, if the schedule works out, I'll go back. But unnecessary games in NFL stadiums when you can wait a couple of years for the grand opening. We'll see what happens. But, I mentioned the Temple has September 26th. That's the only game on the calendar. So if it happens to work out that way, you can maybe even 2-for-1 FAU possibly. But 2027 cannot come soon enough for USF.
Yeah. Amen. Folks, I see 999 people watching right now. If we get one more, we're at 1,000. That would be the first time. So please, someone retweet this fucking thing or send out that logo to a friend. It doesn't matter if you haven't that link. If you haven't talked to them in 5 years, just send them the link. Let's get to 1,000. Let's go. YouTube.com/StadiumHeadsSGPN. I'll say this though, man, for an NFL stadium, it has one of the most, I would say, of the newer NFL stadiums. I think this was built in the 90s, if memory serves me correct. I would say this one has more personality than most with the pirate angle. You know what I mean? So I can enjoy that. Oh, there we are. We're over 1,000. There we go. You know what?
Sir.
Yes. There we go. Over 1,000. All right. This is just the beginning. Get over there. Support your local college football team this season. We got many more episodes to go, and make sure you follow Michael on Twitter at CFB Campus Tour. But wait, we're not done. We got another team to talk about. The Roadrunners of UTSA. Their mascot is awesome. Campy, yes. That works in college football. All right. Now they do play at the Alamo Dome. You know my take on domes, but I also understand that they had to start this program up, and I also understand that the football stadium that the San Antonio Gunslingers used to play at, which I believe was Tom Benson, which was an outdoor stadium in San Antonio, that's occupied by Incarnate Word, so you don't have that luxury. But I am dying for them to get a stadium on campus because I love this program and what they're doing. They've been great in such a short time. The Alamo Dome, which is the house that David Robinson and John Elliott and J.R. Reed built. 31 years old, seat 64,000. I try to be optimistic considering it's a dome, buddy, but give me a stadium on campus that they don't need why you're in San Antonio. You don't need a dome. Incarnate Word doesn't need a dome. You don't need a dome. But if this was what it takes for you to start up your football program, have at it. Your thoughts and about the Alamo Dome and your travels to San Antonio.
Yeah, so I've been to 5 games at the Alamo Dome, which is tied for the most with Kid Brewer. And I'm going to go to Kid Brewer this year, I know for sure, so I'll break it. But, very centrally located around other football programs, and they have a lot of weeknight games, so I've been able to do that. I 2-for-1 them with Texas State back in 2019, but they only started their program in 2011. And the opener that they ever had, they got 64,000 people in there. And so for most games, they only open up the lower bowl that holds 36,000, which is still huge for a G5. So you can see this photo right here. They have the curtains above the upper level. If you go back a couple photos, there's ones where it was from the AAC championship right there in 2022. Go right there. You can see the curtains are open on both sides, and that's when you get over 40,000 people. So not on campus, far from campus, a dome, 64,000 seats, not ideal at all. However, because of the age of the program and the limitations that are there initially, this is the best they can do right now. They have, under Coach Traylor, they've skyrocketed as a program. The fans, UTSA fans, are incredible. I've interacted with them a ton. I enjoy going to the game there. There's a lot of pride, like San Antonio is UTSA football. So, yes, an on-campus thing. We're talking about South Florida finally getting plans. They've been around a little bit longer than UTSA. So I have patience for them. I like what they're doing. And ideally, they're going to get back on campus or close to campus with their own new outdoor stadium. They are earning it on the field, and I'm excited for the direction of their program because, again, they're another one that might be a candidate for a P4 if they can get a on-campus stadium someday.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, you're right. You're right. And that's one because Texas, they got space. I've been to San Antonio. There is space. We can't claim the Philadelphia thing, but I think just in time, just got to be patient. In time, they can get it going. Yeah, I mean, this program, they're in the mix. They could be in the playoffs as close as this year. I mean, like you look at a lot of projections, people got Boise State and Memphis as like your top 2 teams. But if you look at like a list of 5 to 10, UTSA is like number 4 or 5. Like they could easily get to the college football playoff starting this year. That's got to be exciting if you're a road runner, if you just live in San Antonio. Wouldn't that be funny if they made the 12-team playoff before Texas or Texas A&M? That would be great. But yeah, I love what they're doing. I mean, obviously I'm not a dome guy, so I can't praise it too much, but you're doing what you got to do to start your football program. If you got to play in a dome, then play in a dome. So take notes, Vermont or George Mason, even though don't play in a dome, but start your football programs up. Yeah. All right. And that concludes every single team in the AAC, the new AAC, with adding Army this year. We'll see what happens in the coming years. It seems like every couple weeks we got Missouri State and Delaware coming into the Conference USA. Army was added to the AAC this year. And by the way, Missouri State and Delaware's next year in the CUSA. Kennesaw State's added to the CUSA this year. So it's just always, we might have Washington State and Oregon State in the Mountain West or some variation of that, the Pac West or something. I don't know. But we'll have you covered and talking about college when it comes to stadiums and what does, what is right to me in America with the sport of football. College football conquers that. And I hope we give you that window into what makes this sport so incredible. And I can't wait for the future. I know me and Michael pretty much start off every conversation every week with just saying, dude, I can't wait for the season. Can't wait for the season, So Buckle up next week. We are gonna tackle. I believe we got what do we have left? The MAC and the CUSA. Let's go for the MAC next week. Right?
We got a top 5.
We do have a top 5. Let's get to that.
Yeah, I'm good with the MAC next week. That's cool with me.
And yeah, here we go. Sorry, you got to rush the field, by the way, at the Alamo Dome. That's pretty cool. What is that when they won the CUSA championship?
So they actually didn't let us rush. They said if you rush, there won't be a trophy presentation on the field. And then they did the trophy presentation, and then they let people on there. And I said, fuck the trophy presentation. Let's rush the field. And they didn't let us do it. So, but it looks like they rushed the field.
Yeah, lame. Get that. Even more of a reason to have a stadium on campus. Look, your top 5 stadiums. Oh man, I left the Sunbelt graphic. My bad. In the AAC, this is in no order for Michael. Liberty Bowl, Mikey Stadium, Protective Stadium, which is UAB. Remember, Liberty Bowl, Memphis, Mikey Stadium, Army, Protective Stadium, UAB, Navy Memorial, which is obviously Navy, and Dowdy Ficklin, ECU. That is a good 5, if I may say so myself. And Brandon says, "Hey, what's going on? Is that number?" Well, I'll give you my top 5. It is right here. Once again, AAC. I messed up. Sometimes you're in the zone. You're making all these graphics. You don't even see that that's a different conference. Mikey Stadium is my number 1, followed by the Liberty Bowl, and that changes if you ask me next week, I might say Liberty Bowl. 3 is to get rowdy at the Dowdy. Shout out to Brandon. 4 is H.A. Chapman because I love it, and 5 is Navy Memorial. But the hardest thing with ranking these for me is like they change, and I don't want to be. ECU is like my favorite place to watch a college football game, but it's like I'm very biased on that. So Mikey Stadium is one. I haven't even been there, but like I said, maybe it's Randy Cross influence. The Liberty Bowl and Mikey are like 2 of my like top 15 stadiums in college football. So like, if you ask me tomorrow, I might say, "Oh, Liberty Bowl is better than Mikey Stadium." But for doing this, I was like, "Oh man, you got the Hudson River right there. Give me Mikey Stadium." But are you surprised H.A. Chapman was on my list?
No, I think it's a good looking stadium. I think it's, the renovation they did about 10 or 15 years ago made the outside look really good. I'm not surprised by that. And, I have, on my top 5, I would say Liberty Bowl is my favorite. I would say Mikey is 2, and, UAB did a fantastic job with their new stadium. I love it. Navy, the transformation of that stadium is incredible. And, Dowdy is a 50,000 seat on campus G5 stadium. And there's something to be said about that. And, we talked about the history and all that, but these are all unique in different ways. And this conference has got a little bit of a mixed bag of stadiums, smaller, newer ones, older, bigger ones. But I think that when you just hone in on the top 5, they got 5 really solid stadiums.
I would agree. And I actually, and I think they got some building pieces there, some building blocks with FAU and Charlotte and some of these other stadiums that have Tulane, Yeoman Stadium. I like a lot. So the future is bright when it comes to stadiums in the AAC. And yes, folks, the season is coming. So the future is really bright regarding the season, and we will have you covered on the Stadium Heads podcast. Make sure you subscribe. We got 1,025 people watching this thing right now. So appreciate that. Here's the hard part: subscribing. All right. youtube.com/@StadiumHeadsSGPN. Hit that like and subscribe button, or wherever you get your podcast. If you're sitting there, iTunes, type that thing in, right? Stadium Heads. You're going to get it. All right. Spotify, Stadium Heads, whatever, Stitcher, wherever, we'll be there. Google, just type it into Google. We'll pop up. But give Michael a follow. I can't recommend that enough because that's how I became friends with him in a way. It was like I was at CFB Campus Tour on Twitter. I was wondering, who is this guy who's so passionate about college football and college football travel, going around the world, or at least the United States for the most part. just going to different games nonstop. I just thought it was awesome, and he does a great job documenting that. I like to think we document it well here, but also you'll see he does like these. What'd you post this week? It was some stadium, like the way it looked before, the way it looks now. It was awesome. I'm drawing a blank on it right now, but I retweeted it. What team was that?
Well, I know I did Oklahoma.
Yes.
It was Penn State also too. So
okay.
And then Archibald Stadium with Syracuse, put an old photo there. So it's been a few. I mean, this is peak off-season content right now. So, but it's all stadiums. It's all college football. That's all we're going to talk about.
So get on over there and at CFB Campus Tour, and also subscribe to the Stadium Heads. I'm on Twitter at @TheColbyD. I also host the College Football Experience. Check out that podcast as I'm previewing all 134 teams. I'm a little brain dead because of that. I feel like I can't believe I missed the Sunbelt graphic there, but yeah, we're breaking down 134 teams, hour long to every team in the FBS. We also have the FCS College Football Experience. Check out SGPN, Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and get yourself a Stadium Heads hat or shirt. Go to the SGPN merch store. Get the SGPN app. It's free to download in the App Store and Google Play Store. You'll have access. Look at that sweatshirt right there. There we go. All right. Michael's showing that thing off. And yeah, check it out, folks. Until next time, MACtion, which has some great stadiums. A lot of people think the MAC Tuesday, Wednesdays. Don't sleep on MACtion. All right. Because we're going to be covering that next week, followed by the Conference USA, the brand new Conference USA. It's similar to this in many regards. Just the rotating chair, but we're going to tackle it all. Also the independents. Don't worry, McGurk, UMass, we got you covered. It's coming. The Golden Dome, it's coming, and the Wrench up in Connecticut. So yeah, we'll find a way to fit that in, and we might even talk some FCS stadiums, and then obviously we'll highlight Michael's travels as the season inches closer and closer. Until next time, folks. This is the AAC Stadium Heads podcast. You better start thinking about yours. And we are out of here.
I lost a bet on the Super Bowl, so I had to dive in and crawl around through the snow. Don't believe me? Believe me, there's a video. We made it to promote March 5th and then we did the show. Before March, there was a winter to be lived through, and snow fell on the DC metropolis. In some other cities, this wouldn't be big news, but where I live, it felt like an apocalypse. Not the kind where zombies are the wrath of God, but the kind where Mother Nature doesn't laugh it off. I didn't laugh at all. I saw the sky smoking the blunt, now waiting for the ash to fall. Traffic stalled for a few weeks. Capitol Hill of snow taking up a parking space. A couple notches on the beltway ain't unique, but higher in freezes get more than your heart to race. I mean, the rats were frostbitten, they lost it, risking their lives just to make it to the office. Exhausting, caustic, cold front rose up through the mid-Atlantic and did its damage. Detective Bailey didn't expect